Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Has the Red Dragon Emperor appeared yet? Riku asked again. No. I see. Riku's eyes narrowed slightly. He now had a pretty accurate grasp of the current time. So, does this mean I can go now? The devil asked, shaking. At that, Riku shot him a single, icy glance, almost causing the devil to tumble out of the sky. Splurt. Suddenly, the sound of flesh being pierced rang out. The middle-aged devil stared blankly at the gaping hole in his chest before plummeting helplessly to the ground. To think a noble house retainer of the pure-blood devil Naberius clan would grovel before an enemy. Disgraceful. Death is what you deserve. Just then, a cold, new voice rang out. A younger devil arrived at the head of a large devil army, eyes brimming with killing intent as he glared at Riku. But the instant he spotted Drumroll, his gaze turned fanatical. Lately, he had been deeply interested in angels, seeking specimens for his research. He never expected an angel to present herself so conveniently. Hey, I am Gita Naberius, young lord of the pure-blood Naberius clan. If you know what's good for you, angel lady, surrender, and I won't need to hurt you. He spoke to Drumroll with exaggerated politeness, a fake smile plastered on his face. What an unpleasant gaze. Drumroll replied icily, then turned to Riku and bowed. Master, please allow me to kill them all. Go ahead. Don't hold back. Wipe them all out, Riku nodded calmly. Then, I'll get started. Drumroll smiled, fixing her eyes on Gita Naberius. Insolence. Gita, realizing neither Riku nor Drumroll were taking him seriously, instantly flew into a rage, his gaze filling with murderous intent. Splurt. Before he could even give the order, Drumroll vanished and appeared right in front of him, a black energy blade in hand. With a single stroke, she sliced off his head. Blood splattered everywhere. Even in death, his eyes were wide with shock, never comprehending what happened before everything went black. How boring. So weak, Drumroll said in disappointment. She killed the young lord. Damn it, capture them. The other devils, snapping out of their shock, howled in terror. The death of the young lord of a pure-blood devil noble house was enough to shake the entire underworld. Failing to protect him was a huge crime. Their only hope was to capture Riku's group to atone and lessen their punishment. But before they could even act, Drumroll moved again. Each time she vanished and reappeared, a devil was sliced in two. To Drumroll, these devils, even the strongest among them, ultimate class, were nothing but weaklings. Within seconds, the remaining devils were paralyzed with fear and tried to flee. Drumroll, growing bored, simply cast a few spells and slaughtered the rest. So dull, Drumroll said, uninterested, as she rejoined Riku. Riku simply smiled. He'd already gauged these devils' strength. Ultimate class devils were impressive, but to someone like Drumroll, who, thanks to her contract with him, now wielded at least Devil King level power, they were nothing but cannon fodder. As for that so-called young lord of a pure blood house, if he'd really been strong, he would have been counted among the young generation's prodigies. Still, thanks to his perfect memory and having finished the entire high school DxD series out of boredom, Riku recalled some details about the Naberius family. If he remembered correctly, an ultimate class devil from a branch family of Naberius had once taken in the Nekozu sisters, Kuroka and Konkatsuju. Nekozu were the strongest class of Nekomata. That devil had intended to experiment on and devour Konko's power, only to be killed by Kuroka, who wanted to protect her little sister. That tragedy left Kuroka a stray devil, and Konko deeply scarred. Apparently, the main house of the Naberius clan wasn't much better. Since they'd set their sights on him, there was no reason to let them exist any longer. Riku's golden eyes flashed with a chilling light. Chapter 56 It'll still take a while before I can fully adapt to this unknown energy. For now, I have to rely on my stored spirit energy. It feels a bit uncomfortable, Drumroll said, slightly uneasy. No need to make it so complicated. Riku shook his head and, using the authority of the Star Grail, granted Jibril the ability to convert energy. While his higher-level powers were sealed since he hadn't claimed the world's authority here, something like this was still within his means. Riku, I don't need it. I'll finish analyzing and adapting to this energy structure soon, Shui said softly as Riku glanced over. He smiled and patted her head. She's trying not to trouble me. Ah, that's much better, Jibril sighed in relief, stretching. Still, what exactly is this power? This energy here is called magic power. Before long, you'll also see holy power, spiritual power, and other types, Riku explained. Well, it's a bit complicated to break down, but you'll get to experience it firsthand. This world's power system is far more complex than this board's. There's more than just spirit energy here. Is that so? Now I'm looking forward to it. Jibril's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Riku knows so much. Have you visited here before? Shui tilted her head, asking. You can think of it that way. Riku grinned, ruffling Shui's hair again. She didn't press further, just nodded quietly. Looks like it's getting dark. Let's go find somewhere to stay. He glanced at the darkening purple sky. With that, Riku, Shui, and Jibril vanished from the spot. At that very moment, a black sphere of magic struck the spot where Riku had just stood, landing on the castle of the Nabirius clan, one of the pure-blooded devil noble families. With a thunderous explosion, the castle nestled in the beautiful forest was swallowed by energy and annihilated. The shockwave rocked the nearby city, leaving every devil there staring in disbelief, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Meanwhile, Riku and his companions strolled through the city ruled by the Nabirius clan, Nabirius City, for the first time. Even Riku, upon seeing the capital of the devils, felt a tinge of excitement and casually went out to explore. Jibril, of course, shrank her wings and kept them hidden. Many devils noticed how odd the trio looked, but thought little of it. Riku, unbothered, found an inn and checked in. With the system's built-in translation, language was no issue. As for money, he simply tossed a few gemstones from disboard. Master, is it really okay for us to be staying here so leisurely? Jibril asked curiously. If we're discovered, the devils will probably come after us in force. Silly Jibril, Shui replied quietly. Riku's plan is for them to come find us. Exactly. Riku smiled, chasing them down one by one would be too troublesome. It's much easier to let them come to me. So for tonight, we just wait for our guests to arrive, he added, nonchalantly. Sigh, is that so? I guess that means we can't play games with Master tonight, Jibril said with exaggerated disappointment, especially stressing the word game. Riku, let's play chess. Jibril, you can just watch, Shui huffed, producing a chessboard. Hey, that'll pass the time nicely. Riku grinned. Among his favorite things, fighting powerful opponents, wandering with his women, lovemaking and of course, playing chess with Shui. Soon, Riku and Shui were absorbed in their match. Excluded again. But I guess it can't be helped, Jibril muttered, watching the two, who were both entirely focused on the game. After all, I'd just get steamrolled if I played against Master and Shui. While Riku and Shui played chess in leisure, all hell broke loose across the underworld. At dusk, the ancestral manor of the pure-blood devil noble Nabirius clan had been obliterated by terrorists. Every last devil in the household, including the young lord of the Nabirius clan, was dead. Since the great war between God, Lucifer, and the fallen angels, pure-blooded devils had become extremely rare. Each one was a vital link in the devil's bloodline. The loss of even one was a catastrophic event, let alone the total annihilation of a main house, right in their own domain. It was a direct slap in the face to the underworld. The upper echelons of devil society were furious. An emergency summit was called, drawing even the four great Satans together. No one knew the culprit's identity yet, though it was suspected they possessed at least ultimate-class strength. Even the Satans were uncertain, but this was a matter of the underworld's honor. If not dealt with properly, their prestige would suffer. Information spread at lightning speed. In just a few hours, every devil with even the slightest interest in current events knew what had happened. Most were shocked and indignant. The one most enraged was the clan head of Nabirius, the ultimate class devil and lord of the city. His only son had been slaughtered in his own home, no less. Fury and humiliation boiling over, he ignored the summit entirely and launched a personal manhunt. Within hours, he had locked onto Riku's location at the inn, hardly surprising, since Riku hadn't bothered to hide. That level of contempt nearly made Nigel explode. With hatred and rage overflowing, he gathered his peerage, closest retainers, and every devil soldier he could muster and rushed toward the inn. Such a commotion couldn't go unnoticed. Within moments, bold devil civilians trailed behind, eager to see what would happen. I win again. That's 100 wins, 100 losses, Riku said with a smile. Shui puffed up her cheeks, sulking. Rika was getting more and more devious. Again, she said, pouting. Let's do it next time. For now, our guests have arrived, Riku said, ruffling her hair. Fine, Shui sighed, putting away the chessboard. Jibril, meanwhile, was already cracking her knuckles in anticipation. They're right here? The middle-aged devil radiated an overwhelming aura and murderous intent as he questioned his subordinate. Yes, Lord Nabirius. This is the place. They didn't even bother to hide themselves earlier, they brazenly wandered around the city before settling in at this inn. The subordinate, also emitting a powerful aura, responded respectfully. Humphrey, how arrogant can you get? Nigel Nabirius' expression grew even darker. As a veteran of the Great War and a devil named in the Bible, when had he ever been so humiliated? Tear this into the ground. Force them out, Nigel Nabirius commanded, eyes filled with killing intent. Understood. His subordinate instinctively wanted to remind him there were innocent devil civilians inside, but remembering his master's ruthless nature, he simply nodded and prepared to follow the order. A huge fireball formed in his hand and was hurled toward the inn. In an instant, the entire building was engulfed in flames. But before even a second passed, the fire was forcibly repelled and an invisible barrier enveloped the inn. A barrier? What is this power? Nigel Nabirius frowned, sensing an energy utterly unlike magic power, holy power, or spiritual power. He felt a chill down his spine. Humphrey, you think a little barrier will let you act with impunity? With a cold face, he summoned jet black flames in his hand, warping the space around them and sending the temperature soaring. Really, no sense of manners. Just attacking the moment you arrive, a lazy voice echoed, drawing every devil's gaze upward. Atop the roof stood three figures, Riku, Shui, and Jibril. So, the criminals who killed my son finally decided to show themselves. In that case, die. Nigel Nabirius' killing intent locked on Riku, and with a roar, he hurled the black flames. The flames twisted into a dragon, roaring toward Riku. Every devil present watched coldly, they all expected these intruders to be dead already. After all, their lord was a survivor of the Great War, an ultimate class devil, second only to the four Satans themselves. But Riku just waved his hand, looking bored. Suddenly, a storm erupted. The black flame dragon, which had seemed so fierce moments ago, was instantly blown apart, its cinders scattering and igniting everything nearby. The tempest tossed many devils aside, even causing Nigel Nabirius himself to stumble. Barely regaining his footing, he stared in horror at the devastation. With a quick motion, he tried to pull back his flames, but couldn't hide the fear on his face. A casual wave had wiped out his most powerful attack. This man was far too powerful. Nigel had originally assumed Riku was merely ultimate class. After all, encountering a Satan class being in the underworld was virtually impossible, especially someone unknown. But now, he could only tremble in terror. Satan class? Could even a Satan casually generate a storm that shattered his most furious strike? It was absurd. What, scared already? How boring. Riku's tone was flat. By this point, he'd figured out the basic power levels of the high school DxD world. Ultimate class devils were comparable to average Flugal from Discord, maybe even a bit weaker, since Flugal could use the busted teleport ability. If that's all, then you can die now, Riku pronounced Nigel Nabirius' fate with complete indifference. Wait. Nigel's scalp went numb. He tried to say something more. But before he could, Riku casually punched forward. The terrifying shockwave blasted through the air, obliterating every devil. Above blood rained down on the city below. How dull. Shui, let's go back and keep playing chess. Having wiped out the Nabirius clan in a single blow, Riku barely seemed to care. If you target him, you'd better be prepared for the consequences. Chess. This time, I won't lose, Shui said, eyes burning with determination. Hey, I wouldn't be so sure, Riku replied, grinning. I wanted to play chess too. It's so boring now. I thought I'd get a fun fight, but Master finished everything in a flash, Jibril pouted. Shut up, Jibril, you're too weak, Shui replied deadpan. Ah, a critical hit, Jibril smiled, feigning pain. Gulp. While Riku's group joked and headed back to the inn, a crowd of devil civilians who'd witnessed the battle could only swallow in fear, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. Terrifying. Where did this monster come from? He'd just swatted aside the pure-blooded devil ultimate class Nigel Nabirius like he was nothing. A whole noble clan, annihilated in a single day, and right here, in the underworld, in their own city. It was an incident that shook the entire world. No one could imagine what would happen next. Riku was simply too strong. Even those who always believed the four Satans were invincible found their faith shaken. Back at the inn, Riku had already set up a suite of wards, soundproofing, defenses, alarms, all kinds of layered barriers. There, he played chess with Shui and games with Drumroll. But the news of what happened here spread like wildfire, shaking the underworld all over again. And when word got out that Riku had killed Nigel Nabarius, the ultimate class patriarch, and was still calmly staying at the inn, devil nobles and commoners alike nearly lost their minds. He was utterly disregarding the underworld's authority. This was beyond reckless. Especially at the Council of Elders, where the atmosphere was so tense you could cut it with a knife. Even the four great Satans frowned. This guy was truly outrageous and, worst of all, he actually had the strength to back it up. Chapter 57 In the Underworld, in the city of Luciferd on Ma'au Ridge, a group of high-ranking figures were having an emergency conference in the majestic castle's meeting room. Everyone present was either a pure-blood high-class devil noble or a member of the Elders' Council. Above them all sat the four great Satans, Serge Lucifer, Seraphol Leviathan, Falbium Asmodeus, and Adika Beelzebub. This criminal has no respect for the underworld. We must send troops immediately and punish him. One elder shouted in rage. Sigh, Nigel was too reckless. A pure-blood devil noble lamented. Humphrey, that Nigel fellow charged in without even investigating the enemy, and then he got himself killed, another devil sneered. Still, this is a matter of the underworld's reputation. We can't just let it go. We must immediately punish the perpetrator. He continued coldly. If possible, we should try to capture him. There could be a plot targeting us from behind the scenes, another elder said calmly. At this moment, regardless of their personal feelings toward the Nabarius clan, all the high-ranking devils were fuming with rage and bloodlust. This wasn't just about personal honor, this was an event that would damage the prestige of the entire underworld. For those who valued reputation above all else, this was intolerable. Quiet. Let's review the magic footage that was recorded, said Serge, his crimson hair striking, his features elegant, dressed in his signature white and gold robes. His voice was authoritative and calm. You're all so hot-blooded, honestly. And yet you call Nigel old man impulsive, added the girl beside him in a magical girl costume, Seraphol Leviathan, one of the four Satans, her eyes glimmering with a faint reddish light and a strange accent. Falbium Asmodeus and Adika Beelzebub said nothing, simply watching on with calm expressions. With Serge and Seraphol's words, the room quieted down. Let's begin, Serge said, tapping the table lightly. A subtle wave of demonic power spread, and in front of each high-ranking devil appeared a small magic mirror, which began replaying the footage of Riku killing Nigel Nabarius. After watching, every high-ranking devil's face turned grim. They had thought Nigel was killed after a fierce battle, but in the footage, it was clear, with a casual wave of his hand, Riku had dispersed Nigel's most furious attack. Then, with a single, nonchalant punch, he obliterated Nigel and all other devil powerhouses present, so quickly that even in the playback, it was hard to see what happened. In an instant, Nigel Nabarius had gone from standing to raining down as a shower of blood. Such power no one present dared claim they could defeat him. And it was obvious, even the display of strength in the footage wasn't Riku being serious. Does anyone have any comments? Adika Beelzebub finally spoke, his expression slightly tense as he glanced around at the others. He's strong. At least Ma'au class, murmured one noble. Ma'au class, that's a conservative estimate. He's certainly not weaker than us four, Serge agreed, nodding. Of course, Serge and Adika's expressions remained calm because they meant in their normal, non-serious forms. Seraphol Leviathan and Falbium Asmodeus, however, looked far more serious. TCH. The room fell silent as everyone processed this. When did Ma'au class powers become so common, appearing out of nowhere like this? There were many powerful devils in the underworld, but true Ma'au class beings were rare, forged through centuries of accumulation. And another thing, the girl with the halo and wings, Serge added. An angel? The devils finally noticed the small wings behind Drumroll, drawn in by Riku's power, and they hadn't paid attention earlier. Damn, is this a plot by heaven? If the angels can invade the underworld undetected, that's a huge problem, someone cursed. If this was really heaven's scheme, with a means of infiltrating the underworld completely undetected, the danger was beyond words, far worse than a single Ma'au class threat. No, it's not certain this is a plot by heaven. But it is certain they are not of the underworld and have arrived here by some unknown means, Serge said seriously. Still, that angel doesn't look like a regular angel to me, Seraphol mused, touching her lips with her finger and staring at Gabriel's glowing wings. Ordinary two-winged angels don't have wings sprouting from their waists. That's also an issue. We can't judge her by normal standards. And that small girl next to them, we don't know her race, but to be with someone of Ma'au class, she can't be normal, Serge continued solemnly. This affects the entire underworld, so we must act with utmost caution. This incident is SSS level, he concluded. Leave it to you, then. I'm closest to Nabirius territory, so I'll go check out those mysterious people. Wouldn't want them to run away, Seraphol said with a twinkle in her eye, her usual playful tone returning. Before anyone could react, she cut her magical projection and vanished from the meeting. Sersts and the others could only smile wryly. Seraphol was always like this, headstrong and unpredictable. But no one truly worried. After all, Seraphol was one of the 4 great Satans, standing at the peak of the underworld. Even if she couldn't win, she could always escape. That was everyone's assumption. The next day, after Riku, Shui, and Jibril took a bath together and cleaned up, they decided to leave the inn. After all, they were just spending the night here, they had no intention of staying in this city for long. And the devils who needed to be wiped out had already been dealt with. For Riku, what was more interesting was opening treasure chests. Plus, his most important goal was to devour the world authority. Although the system didn't specify exactly how to devour a world authority, Riku had some ideas. The system had said it was related to fate. So, the goal should be to find the people with the greatest fate in this world, the protagonists and supporting characters. Whether recruiting them or killing them, he should be able to suppress their fate on them. Of course, aside from protagonists and supporting characters, top-tier powerhouses must also carry a lot of fate. Once the threshold was reached, the world authority would naturally manifest. That made the goal clear: approach all the Pantheons, either recruit them, form alliances, or, as a last resort, destroy them. After all, Riku's aim was world fusion, not becoming a mad destroyer. The diamond chest is in Mao Ridge, which is a bit far. But deviating a little and grabbing a nearby platinum chest isn't bad either, Riku said, checking the system map. While thinking about these things, the 3 had already left the city, under the frightened gazes of the devil's civilians. As Riku and the others left, a black-haired, twin-tailed girl quietly followed them from afar. Master, when are we dealing with the one following us? Jibril's eyes sparkled with fighting spirit. She feels strong, not like those weaklings we dealt with earlier. According to my energy scan, she's even stronger than Jibril. But she doesn't seem to have strong killing intent, more like interest or curiosity. Shui's eyes flashed with data as she reported to Riku. Huh? Stronger than me? Jibril was surprised, but her fighting spirit burned brighter. No rush, let's see how long she wants to follow, Riku said playfully, the corners of his mouth curling up. He trusted Shui's detection. If she were stronger than Jibril, she must be Mao level. Not just any Mao, either, most likely a peak level Mao. There weren't many at that level in the underworld. In Riku's view, it had to be one of the 4 great Maos. In fact, he could even guess who it was. Thanks to his superhuman senses, he could smell a faint fragrance from a great distance, the kind only women possessed. Where are these mysterious people going? 3 hours later, Seraphol trailed behind at a distance, muttering to herself. If they keep going, they'll enter the Phoenix territory. Is that their next target? Seraphol pondered. The punitive force will need time to catch up. Before that, I can't let them advance any further. Plus, this area is deserted, perfect for a battle, she decided. The underworld was vast and sparsely populated, with cities far apart. That was why she hadn't attacked yet. Mao-level battles were too destructive. But out here in the wilderness, there was nothing to worry about. Mao Seraphol Leviathan, you've been following us for quite a while. Aren't you tired? Riku and his companions suddenly stopped and turned, calmly addressing the seemingly empty air behind them. Seraphol froze for a second. So I've been discovered for a while, huh? She dispelled the magic that concealed her presence and looked at Riku, frowning. Since you knew I was following you, why didn't you run? Hee, Mao-sama, I think you're misunderstanding something. Someone at your level isn't even a match for my master. In fact, you might not even be able to beat me, Jibril said with a smile. Master? Seraphol glanced at the warlike Jibril, then focused on Riku's calm expression. Originally, Seraphol had thought Jibril was just Riku's attendant, probably at most an ultimate class. But now, with them recognizing her identity and still talking so big, it could only mean Riku himself was peak Mao level. To have a suspected angel-level Mao as a maid, was this guy really as strong as the highest speculated level? If you already know my name, may I ask yours? Seraphol asked Riku seriously, her tone losing its usual magical girl flair. She was getting genuinely concerned. Probing, huh? Well, it doesn't matter, Riku said calmly. I am Riku Dola. This is Shui, and this is Jibril. Riku Dola, Shui, Jibril. Seraphol squinted. She'd never heard of any of those names. None of the world's power rankings included them. The more she thought about it, the bigger her headache became. Just where did these monsters come from? I know you won't tell me, But I'll ask anyway. What's your purpose in the underworld? Why did you exterminate House Naberius? Seraphol pressed. Oh, those pests tried to capture me as some kind of experiment. Master got angry and just wiped them out, Jibril answered lightly. Jibril, don't talk too much, Riku said, patting Jibril's head. Jibril immediately grabbed her head in mock pain. Hearing this, Seraphol could only roll her eyes at House Naberius. You spot suspicious people, and instead of reporting it, you try to capture them, and not just anyone, but a group of Mao-class powerhouses? Of course, they wipe you out. The strong always have their pride. Seraphol had already heard plenty of rumors about House Naberius, including that incident 3 years ago. Apparently, they hadn't learned a thing. Although House Naberius was indeed disrespectful to you first, you're still invaders in the end. This kind of approach is pretty arrogant, you know. Seraphol first complained about House Naberius, then addressed Riku seriously. She honestly didn't care if House Naberius was wiped out, they were cancer on the future of the underworld anyway. But letting them be destroyed was one thing, the underworld's dignity was another. Right and wrong, do you really think there's any point in debating that here? Riku glanced at Seraphol with a calm, indifferent expression. You're right, there's really no meaning in talking about that. Seraphol paused, then gave a carefree smile. Her eyes sharpened, and she continued, in that case, I might as well just capture you now, and we can talk about the rest later. If you can do it, go ahead and try, Riku replied coolly. Master, how about you let me have a go at her? Jibril suddenly interrupted with a playful grin. Denied, Riku shot her a look and rejected her immediately. Why? Jibril asked, looking crestfallen. She finally had a chance to fight someone apparently stronger than herself, but Master just dumped a bucket of cold water on her excitement. Why can't you be as obedient as Shui? Riku rolled his eyes. Riku, I want to try too. Shui suddenly tugged at Riku's sleeve, looking up at him. At this, Riku's brow twitched a little. My adorable Shui, are you trying to embarrass your husband? You three are too much. I'm really angry now. Seeing that Riku's group didn't take her seriously at all, instead debating who should have the right to her as if she were some prey, Seraphol was about to explode with anger. I'm supposed to be the hunter here. You're the criminals, have some self-awareness. Besides, as a Mao, she was always treated with the utmost respect wherever she went. When had she ever been looked down on like this? You don't have to worry, rest assured, I'll wipe all of you out here. Seraphol yelled, her anger boiling over. You'll find out what happens when you make a magical girl mad. Oh? Pulling out your big move already? Riku replied leisurely. Looks like it, Jibril nodded seriously. Hurry up, I'm quite curious about Maus, you know, Shui added, smiling brightly. This made Seraphol's face twitch, she didn't even bother with dramatic lines, just got ready to fight. In the next moment, a powerful wave of demonic energy radiated from Seraphol. A magic circle, etched with mysterious runes symbolizing Leviathan, rippled out from beneath her feet. Soon, 10 figures appeared beside Seraphol. There were magical beasts, high-class UK, and even something like exorcists. In short, these 10 were no ordinary beings, the weakest among them were ultimate-class devils, and 2 or 3 were even Mao-class, though not peak level. After all, these were the personal servants of one of the 4 great Maos. Seraphol Leviathan. Humphrey, don't blame me for ganging up on you, Seraphol said coldly after summoning her servants. Servants, huh? The devil's little trick really does boost your strength a lot. I have to give credit to Ajical Beelzebub for inventing the evil pieces system, Riku commented as he glanced at Seraphol's servants. Ajical Beelzebub's evil pieces allowed most races to be reincarnated as devils, becoming servants of a high-class devil. The set included a queen, 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and 8 pawns, just like chess. It was a brilliant invention. Not only could it expand the devil race, but the newly reincarnated devils would gain the special traits of their corresponding pieces and grow alongside their master. There was another advantage: with the right preparations, the link between master and servant allowed for summoning at will. Well, that's about the only thing Beelzebub is better at than the rest, Seraphol said with a snort. But you're awfully calm about all this, it's almost surprising. So these are the wanted criminals? As expected, they're not ordinary at all, said a magical beast wreathed in fire behind Seraphol, his tone heavy. His instincts screamed for him to stay away from Riku. No matter how strong, we'll subdue them, a woman with a magic sword at her waist said coolly. Oh my, looks like I won't have to fight you for the prey, master. So many to choose from. Jibril's eyes sparkled. Riku, your opponent is the Mao? The rest are for me and Jibril, don't take our fun away, Shui declared. Sounds good to me, Riku said with a cheerful nod. That's enough out of you. Seraphol shouted, almost hopping mad after listening to the three of them. All of you, attack, gang up on them if you have to. Especially that guy. These three really are underestimating us. Go. Take them down. Seraphol's servants charged toward Riku's group, and the short distance of 100 meters vanished in an instant. Don't kill them, leave them alive. They might be useful, Riku said calmly to Drumroll and Shui, before vanishing from his spot. In the next instant, Riku appeared in front of Seraphol and casually threw a punch. Seraphol's pupils contracted sharply. At the crucial moment, she condensed layers of ice and unleashed a powerful magical barrier. Boom. Crack. But it was all futile. Riku's punch shattered the ice and broke through the barrier with ease. In an instant, Seraphol was sent flying like a meteor, smashing into a distant mountain and pulverizing several hills in a row. Rocks flew everywhere, and the earth trembled with the impact. Seraphol Sama. Her servants, who had just surrounded Shui and Drumroll, froze in shock and horror. Chapter 58. Seraphol was one of the four great Maos of the underworld. Despite being a woman, no one could deny her power. She stood at the pinnacle of the underworld, as one of its four greatest pillars. Once, in a fit of anger, she had frozen an entire nation. And yet, someone as strong as Seraphol, her servants now watched in shock as their master was sent flying with a single blow. What was even more shocking was that her servants, all at least ultimate class devils, some even Mao class, hadn't even reacted. They'd known their enemy would be strong, but this was on a whole other level. Where are you all looking? Your opponents are me and Shui, you know, Drumroll said with a playful smile as she suddenly vanished and reappeared in front of the female knight wielding a sword, swinging her own pitch-black energy blade. Clang. At the very last moment, the ultimate class devil knight managed to parry, but she was still sent flying by Drumroll's overwhelming power. At the same time, a violent tornado swept towards her. The magical beast among Seraphol's servants dove forward, shielding the knight from the worst of Drumroll's magic and saving her from serious injury. So strong. The devils stared at Drumroll with grim faces. To be able to overwhelm one of their own so easily, she had to be Mao class at least, and not just any Mao class, but a high grade. Pseudo formula, Thunder Dragon, Shui announced, unleashing a roaring blue lightning dragon at the group. The queen servant, a woman with Mao class power and a magic staff, immediately created multiple magical barriers, clashing head-on with Shui's Thunder Dragon. Boom. The queen was blasted out of the sky, crashing to the earth below. The surrounding area was scorched for miles, and the queen herself was left covered in soot, electricity still crackling over her battered form. Everyone was stunned by the power of Drumroll and Shui. They'd thought the two were just some kind of attendants, but they were terrifyingly strong. If the servants were this powerful, then what about their master, Riku? The devils all felt a chill run down their spines. Damn it. 5 of us will handle her just to stall for time. Seraphol Sama will be fine, the beaten queen gritted out, flying back up. She quickly gave commands, and the servants steeled themselves for all-out battle. This was exactly what Drumroll wanted. Being a battle maniac, she gleefully unleashed high-tier spells, one after another. Shui, for her part, fought more elegantly, but her oppressive presence was even greater than Drumroll's. Any spell or move she saw, she could instantly analyze and counter. In that desolate wilderness, the sounds of terrifying explosions rocked the sky and earth, leaving everything in ruins. How long do you plan to hide? Riku asked calmly, unfazed by the shockwaves and destruction all around him. His white hair fluttered in the wind as he looked into the distance. He knew that, though his earlier punch could kill a typical Mao-class devil, it wasn't enough to take out Seraphol, nor was that his goal. He'd held back. As he finished speaking, Seraphol burst from the shattered mountain, taking to the sky. She was covered in dust, her magical girl outfit torn in several places, but she was otherwise unharmed. So, you're Riku. You're really absurdly strong, aren't you? It seems both I and Serge underestimated you, Seraphol said coldly, fixing Riku with a steely gaze. But no matter how strong you are, you dared to ruin my precious costume. Now, you'll pay the price. Murderous intent flashed in Seraphol's eyes. Riku couldn't help but feel speechless. She cares more about her magical girl cosplay than getting punched through a mountain. No wonder she's the ultimate Chunabi Umao. In the next instant, Seraphol unleashed a terrifying surge of demonic power. Space itself trembled, and the air froze, scattering blue ice shards everywhere. Absolute zero. A deep blue magic circle appeared in Seraphol's hand. An instant later, a wave of freezing cold shot toward Riku, freezing the very air, dust, and even space itself in its path. Boom. Riku met the wave with a single punch. His fist shattered the incoming cold, the sky blue crystals exploding into sparkling dust that rained down across the land. Not only that, but but the resulting shockwave obliterated everything for tens of kilometers. Mountains, clouds, everything vanished in an instant. If Seraphol hadn't dodged the lingering shockwave, she might have been seriously injured. "Hey, that's just cheating," Seraphol muttered, not wanting to accept it. Even Surst's power of destruction couldn't dispel her absolute zero so easily, but Riku had brushed it aside with a casual punch, nearly injuring her in the process. "But I haven't lost yet." The angry Seraphol immediately attacked again. She conjured a massive ice dragon, hundreds of meters long, its breath freezing everything it touched. With a roar, it lunged at Riku. "This is getting a bit boring," Riku sighed, watching the ice dragon rush at him. He raised his fist and struck. Before Seraphol's stunned eyes, the dragon was reduced to shards of ice, smashing into the ground and leaving countless craters. In the next instant, Riku vanished and reappeared in front of Seraphol, seizing her delicate throat with one hand. The sudden attack made Seraphol's pupils contract violently. Was it a space ability? No. If he was this overwhelming, even a space ability wouldn't explain it. The only answer was that he outclassed her by an entire tier. Crack. But Seraphol wasn't done yet. She grabbed Riku's arm with both hands, summoning intense cold as deep blue ice began to spread, trying to freeze Riku's arm solid. Perhaps for an average Mao-class powerhouse, being frozen by Seraphol's eyes would mean the only chance of survival would be to sever both arms before the cold could spread. Otherwise, if the chill reached the rest of the body, there would be no saving them. But for Riku, this level was child's play. He simply gave a calm shake and then unleashed a surge of terrifying energy from within. In an instant, the ice covering his arm shattered completely, revealing Riku's perfectly unharmed limbs. Even in his normal state, Riku's sheer physical strength was enough to overpower Reginlif, and now, empowered by chaos energy that far surpassed Reginlif's own, he was on an entirely different level. Though he wasn't sure who was stronger between Reginlif and the heavenly dragons of this world, one thing was clear: Reginlif was vastly above the average Mao class. By this calculation, Reginlif was at least a super devil. So, even if Seraphol was at her peak, to Riku, she was still just a weaker opponent, one he could defeat with ease. Seeing Riku effortlessly shake off her ice, Seraphol's expression finally changed to one of panic. She clenched her teeth, ready to unleash her trump card regardless of the consequences. Still not giving up? Riku noticed immediately, and with a light squeeze of his hand, Seraphol's face began to turn a bit purple, her breath coming in gasps. Even for a Mao, the neck was still a vital point. "In that case, I'll just make you behave," Riku said, completely calm. With those words, his left hand pressed against Seraphol's abdomen, forming a complex magic circle covered in elf-like runes. This was none other than the fourth blessing of eternity, the strongest defense and sealing magic of the elves, a spell Drumroll had once used. As one of Riku's women and maids, Think had eagerly taught him everything she knew, and Riku, with his own talent plus Shui's analysis, had even managed to improve on it. In the blink of an eye, Seraphol felt her whole body grow heavy. The absolute zero cold she was preparing to unleash was instantly suppressed, and even her demonic power was compressed and sealed away, completely inaccessible. "My power has been sealed. What did you do to me?" Seraphol's eyes widened in disbelief. Without her magic, she was just a slightly stronger than average devil girl. "All right. From now on, you're my spoils of war. As my prisoner, you're now my maid." Riku let go of her neck and, to prevent her from falling out of the sky, scooped her into his arms as if nothing was wrong. "Who's your maid?" Seraphol snapped, both panicked and furious. "Give me my powers back, now." "Not listening?" "Disobedient maids have to be disciplined." Riku's brow arched, and he erected a barrier, holding Seraphol horizontally. He promptly smacked her across the butt. The impact left Seraphol completely stunned. A sharp pain bloomed across her rear. As a Mao, when had she ever been spanked by someone? You. Even Seraphol, usually so easygoing, was left speechless and humiliated. Smack. Still not obedient? Then let's continue. Seeing this, Riku's eyes glinted, and he delivered another slap. The crisp sound echoed within the barrier. With it came Seraphol's flustered, angry, and embarrassed cries, a mixture of indignation and shame. While Riku was disciplining the Mao, the battles on the other side grew even more intense. Though Seraphol's servants were all-powerful ultimate-class devils at the very least, facing Drumroll and Shui, they were still outmatched. No matter how well they cooperated, no matter how fierce the fight, they were always being suppressed. After all, both Drumroll and Shui had overwhelming power, and both possessed space manipulation, an utterly broken ability. Especially Shui, who was on another level. So, after a period of back and forth, leaving the area devastated, all of Seraphol's servants ended up defeated, each one sealed within the fourth blessing of eternity. What's taking Riku so long? Shui tilted her head, glancing at the still shrouded barrier with curiosity. Yeah, maybe Master's having some fun with that Mao girl, Drumroll said, her eyes shining with mischief. Flirt, Shui pouted lightly. She was well aware of Riku's playboy tendencies. All of Riku's women knew, but none of them tried to stop him or could, really. Besides, if opposing Riku lowered their favorability, it simply wasn't worth it. Meanwhile, Seraphil's servants grew more anxious and furious with each passing moment. But sealed inside the barrier, there was nothing they could do. They never imagined they'd fall here to these three monsters from who knows where. Seraphil's queen looked utterly despondent. She wasn't worried about her own life, but about the purity of Seraphil and her fellow servants. Dying wasn't scary. But being toyed with before death? That was the greatest humiliation. Drumroll and Shui's conversation was enough to scare her witless, making her imagine Riku as that kind of person. A short while later, Riku and Seraphil reappeared before everyone. Riku looked as calm as ever, though there was a subtle satisfaction in his gaze. After all, disciplining a Mao girl like that was deeply satisfying. Seraphil, on the other hand, had already changed into a brand new, gorgeous magical girl outfit and now stood obediently at Riku's side. With her seal slightly loosened, she could now control a small amount of demonic power enough for flight, if not for battle. Seraphil's face was full of shame and resentment, sneaking murderous glances at Riku when she thought he wasn't looking. If he hadn't produced such a beautiful, magical girl outfit, she would never have submitted. Probably. Chapter 59. He Master, are you done already? Why did it feel so short this time? Master, you really need to take better care of your health, or else you won't be able to satisfy all your girls in the future, Drumroll said as she looked at Riku, a mischievous grin on her face. Riku just glanced at Drumroll and, without a word, flicked her forehead. Whether he was up to it or not, Drumroll should know best. Who was the one begging for mercy last night? Riku, did you really? With her? Shui tilted her head, suspicious. Don't overthink it. I didn't eat her up, Riku shook his head, dispelling Shui's wild guesses. Eating wasn't an option, but training a Mao girl was way more fun than simply eating. Seraphil, are you alright? Did he do anything to you? At this moment, Seraphil's queen anxiously asked. Don't overthink it. He. Seraphil's face flushed a bit, but it wasn't from embarrassment, it was from anger. Just as she was about to say something, she noticed Riku's sharp gaze. Her expression froze, and forcing a smile, she said, Master didn't do anything to me. This answer left Seraphil's spirit wide-eyed, as if they were witnessing something impossible. Was this really the notorious, reckless Seraphil Leviathan who used to threaten to attack heaven at the drop of a hat? Now she was actually calling their enemy master. Something was seriously wrong here. This man was definitely. In an instant, Seraphil's spirit glared at Riku with murderous intent. Should I say you're all too naive, or just ignorant of your own limits? Looks like I'll have to do a bit of training, Riku said with a half-smile, glancing at the peerage still sealed by, fourth blessing of eternity. W8. Master, please don't do anything to them. Seraphil exclaimed in a panic, quickly signaling to her peerage with her eyes. Seraphil knew all too well that Riku's strength wasn't something they could hope to resist. After experiencing his training herself, she definitely didn't want her peerage to suffer the same. Seeing Seraphil's reaction, her peerage wisely fell silent. The enemy was just too powerful. Once her peerage had calmed down, Seraphil let out a secret sigh of relief, her heart full of bitterness. This might truly be the underworld's greatest crisis. In Seraphil's mind, Riku's power was at least on the same level as the heavenly dragons. Even if the four great Mao joined forces, they might not be able to defeat him. Trying to subdue him would mean disastrous losses. And now, she herself had the misfortune of being captured. The situation was even worse. I thought you'd be a bit more stubborn, what a shame, Riku said, pretending to be disappointed. Seraphil gritted her teeth. Clearly, this guy was hoping they'd rebel so he could train them even more. Riku, why are you taking them with us? Wouldn't they just be a burden? Shui asked in confusion. Yeah, wouldn't it be better to just kill them? Drumroll wondered. My first little goal is to rule the underworld, so I need to make people submit. What's the point in killing them? Riku replied casually. The three of them alone couldn't realistically govern the underworld, so he had to start by subduing the high-level elites. Rule the underworld? Seraphil's pupils shrank, her face clouded. No wonder this man wasn't killing them. But did he really think they'd help him seize power? Alright, enough small talk. Looks like we've got more guests, Riku said as he looked into the distance, the corner of his lips curling upward. How enthusiastic, they really sent quite a few devils this time. Hearing this, Shui and Drumroll also looked over. In the distant sky, a large group of devils was flying toward them, led by a red-haired man who radiated an overwhelming presence. Surge is here. This isn't good. Seraph's expression changed, her face turning anxious. If she didn't know Riku's strength, she might have been glad, but now that she did, just Surge and his peerage, plus this subjugation force, were nowhere near enough. If they lost, they'd all be captured. With Tumao taken prisoner, the remaining forces would stand no chance against Riku's trio. Seraph? In seconds, Surge Lucifer and his group stopped about 100 meters away. He first shot Riku a serious look, then glanced at Seraph and her peerage, and couldn't help but freeze. Not only Surge, but the rest of the subjugation force was stunned as well. Because Seraph and her peerage were so clearly captives. Being able to capture Mao and her peerage, this enemy was terrifyingly strong. Oh? Surge Lucifer, and a legendary queen, the silver-haired Annihilation Queen Greyfiluzafuge, the Holy Dragon Tanin, Inku. Quite the lineup, Riku calmly assessed the newcomers. He hadn't expected Surge to be so cautious, deploying such a strong lineup. Clearly, he wanted to leave nothing to chance. Unfortunately, with Riku as their opponent, all these efforts would be for nothing, just empty gestures. Surge, don't worry about us, just get out of here and gather all your forces. This guy's power is at least on par with the heavenly dragons. The other two aren't much weaker either. Seraph could no longer care about appearances and shouted anxiously. His goal is to capture the underworld's leadership and take control. Heavenly dragon level strength. Aiming to rule the underworld? That statement made Surge and the other top-tier devils' eyes narrow sharply. Disobedient maids can wait for their punishment, let's handle business first, Riku said, reinforcing the fourth blessing of eternity, barrier and blocking all sound. Then Riku stepped forward, gazing at Surge and speaking coolly, now that you know our purpose and power, will you run away or fight? Humphrey, with ambitions like yours, we have no choice but to fight. Besides, abandoning my comrades is not something I can do, Surge replied, stepping forward without hesitation. Instantly, his aura erupted, waves of crimson destruction surging and stirring the wind and clouds. This makes me look like the Demon King, while you all look like heroes, Riku said with an odd expression as he listened to the two Mao's conversation. Clearly, I'm the one true god, and you're the Mao? Our roles are totally reversed. Hee, whether god or demon, none of that really matters, Drumroll replied with a playful smile. Riku, don't overthink it, Shui said, tugging at Riku's sleeve. I'm not overthinking. It just feels a bit weird, that's all, Riku shrugged. One true god? That title made Surge, Seraph, and the other devils frown slightly. They'd never heard of such a name before. But if someone had the title of god and this kind of power, it wasn't that surprising. Still, the fact that Riku appeared human was strange. Well, talking about this is meaningless, Riku said, shrugging as he walked through the air towards Surge. Shui, Drumroll, just keep an eye on the prisoners. I'll take care of these guys by myself. At that, the corners of Riku's mouth curled up, and his interest was piqued. His method for conquering the underworld was simple, demonstrate his power and forcibly subdue all the top forces. When it was a matter of life and death for the entire underworld, he was sure the high-level devils would know how to choose. If Master says so, I'll just watch obediently, Drumroll said with a bright smile. Shui nodded simply. Alone? Surge watched Riku, his eyes flickering. While he felt they were being underestimated, it was also to their advantage. Well then, let's begin. With that, Riku stuck his hands in his pockets, his gaze sweeping across Surge, Greyfiluzafuge, the Holy Dragon Tanin, Inku, and the other top combatants. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Riku vanished from where he stood and reappeared before Surge's knight, Akatsuchi. With a single punch. Thunderous crash. Even though Akata had the strength of an ultimate-class devil and was Kiba-Yodo's master in swordsmanship, he was sent flying in one blow, spewing blood, and instantly incapacitated. Everyone, including Surge, had their expressions change. The next second, all their combat instincts took over, and they coordinated seamlessly to attack Riku. Surge instantly condensed his power of destruction, unleashing a deep crimson magic sphere that could erase anything in existence. Greyfire conjured a storm of wind chains to restrict Riku's movement. The Dragon King Tanin charged with his mighty body, swiping at Riku with his massive claws. Inku and the middle-aged devil bearing the phoenix crest both unleashed flames. These were no ordinary flames, powerful enough to burn through dragon scales. The other devils all unleashed their signature abilities, attacking Riku with everything they had. In the blink of an eye, the sky lit up with all sorts of devastating attacks, like a fireworks show of ultimate power. Any ordinary Mao level being facing so many top-class opponents at once would only despair and die. But Riku was no ordinary Mao. These so-called ultimate attacks were meaningless to him. At the last second, Riku disappeared without a trace. Boom. A terrifying explosion followed, shaking everything for miles around. Everyone, Sirsts and the rest, and even Seraphol, stared wide-eyed at the blast center. Did they get him? Yo, what are you all looking at? Riku's voice suddenly rang out, startling them all. Especially the Dragon King Tanin. His pupil shrank in disbelief. Riku was standing right on his head. Spatial powers. The other experts also tensed. This wasn't good. Someone with spatial powers and this level of strength would be almost impossible to catch. Don't get too cocky. Tanin, however, didn't care. Dragons were proud beings, and having the enemy stand on his head was the ultimate humiliation. Roaring in fury, Tanin swiped at his own head with his massive claw. So short-tempered. That's not good. Just lie down for now, Riku said coolly. He lifted his foot and stomped down. Crack. Boom. With that one step, an overwhelming force shattered Tanin's hard skull, splitting his dragon scales. The next moment, Tanin fell from the sky like a meteor, crashing into the earth below, sending shockwaves for miles, leaving a massive crater in the ground. The once mighty Dragon King now lay in the center of the crater, blood streaming from his head, unable to move. He'd been utterly defeated by just one of Riku's casual strikes. Tanin. The rest of the subjugation team gasped in shock. They had been startled by how quickly Riku had defeated Akita, but this was far beyond their expectations. After all, Seraphol had warned them Riku was at least at the level of a heavenly dragon. But now, even Tanin had been felled in an instant. This was too terrifying. Tanin was once one of the 6 Dragon Kings. Dragonkind's physical defenses far surpassed most races, and a Dragon King was even tougher. Even the 2 heavenly dragons couldn't have instantly one-shotted a Dragon King. But Riku had done it. Now, everyone finally understood the true depth of Riku's power. Forget his other abilities, just this pure, overwhelming strength alone was enough to crush any Mao-level opponent. And that wasn't even considering his spatial powers. The combination of these 2 abilities was more than just 1 + 1, it was a force multiplier. And who knew if he was still hiding even more power? At that moment, even these battle-hardened top-class devils felt their hearts sink. It wasn't that they were weak, their enemy was just too strong. Now, they understood why Seraphol had told them to run. This was definitely not an opponent they could handle. To stand even a chance, they'd have to gather nearly all the fighting power of the underworld, prepare a trap to seal off spatial movement, and hope for the best. Otherwise, even if they managed to wound him, Riku would just escape. Of course, that was all wishful thinking on their part. If Riku knew what they were thinking, he'd probably just laugh. Let alone the full force of the underworld, he could probably beat the whole world single-handedly. Chapter 60. So you're scared already? Then I advise you all to just surrender. It'll be better for everyone, Riku said calmly, sweeping his gaze across the shocked faces of the strongest in the area. You bastard, don't look down on us. That sentence instantly enraged everyone present. At that moment, a middle-aged devil with wings of fire on his back, clearly infuriated, charged at Riku without hesitation. Slash. Riku casually swung his fist, blowing the devil's head apart. But instead of blood, flames spewed out. As the headless devil's body flared, the burning flames around him surged, twining toward Riku. A pure-blooded devil from the Phoenix family, huh? Seeing this, Riku's mind instantly recalled the relevant information. The Phoenix family, said to be immortal devils, possessed the power of rebirth in flames and insane regenerative abilities. Even if reduced to ashes, they could revive. Only things that specifically countered devils, like holy water or holy swords, could cause them real pain and potentially shatter their will. The second method? Simply overpowering them completely until they collapse. Honestly, the Phoenix family's bloodline was pretty tempting. If the Cyan God bloodline could be fused with it, that would be an ultimate combo. While these thoughts flashed through Riku's mind, Sirsts and the other powerhouses used the Phoenix Devil's suicidal charge to launch their own attacks. In an instant, a barrage of overwhelming attacks tore through the sky. Greyfire used a huge strain to disrupt the local space, hoping to restrict Riku's spatial movement. I have to commend your courage, but unfortunately, this is pointless against me, Riku said with a look of genuine admiration toward the Phoenix Devil who had trapped him. While Phoenix Devils can revive endlessly with their flames, getting hit by so many devastating attacks would be agony beyond words. The Phoenix Devil was startled to realize something was wrong. Before he could react, Riku's body trembled, and he easily shook off the undying flames around him. Slash. Riku then sent the Phoenix Devil flying with a single kick, incinerating him. The devil disintegrated into flames and crashed to the ground, joining Tannen in defeat. Although he wouldn't truly die, being utterly crushed by someone 2 whole classes above him made even the Phoenix regeneration seem limited. But by then, Xerxes and the others' attacks had already landed. Riku, looking unfazed, simply cast Eternal Fourth Blessing on himself. Boom. 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 Deafening explosions rocked the sky, turbulent winds and shockwaves ravaging both air and land. He must have taken some damage this time, Xerxes and the others thought, closely watching the explosion center, not daring to relax, launching attack after attack. This opportunity had come at the cost of a comrade's heavy injuries, and it was lucky that the sacrificed devil was from the Phoenix family, or it would have meant a fatality. They couldn't afford to waste it. So noisy, Shui shook her head. Jibril pouted in mild annoyance. Master is so mean, not letting me play too. The girl's reactions made Seraphol Leviathan uneasy. She'd been pleased by the tactical prowess and strength of Xerxes' side. It would be satisfying to see that infuriating man get hurt. As for actually killing him? She wasn't that naive. This level of attack could injure a heavenly dragon, but not kill them. After all, there's an essential difference between a Mao class and a heavenly dragon class, let alone a monster like Riku, whose power and abilities were so strange. Now, seeing Shui and Jibril acting so relaxed made Seraphol even more uneasy. Was what Riku had shown so far only the tip of the iceberg? Was this barrage of attacks not even enough to wound him? If so, wasn't he at the level of a chief god, Indra, Shiva, or Zeus? Or even above? The thought filled Seraphol with dread. While she was lost in thought, Xerxes and the others finally stopped, panting as they eyed the aftermath of the explosion. Some spatial cracks remained from the blast, but they slowly healed. What? No damage. When the smoke cleared, the sight before them made even the most iron-willed among them widen their eyes and tighten their hearts in shock. Riku stood there unscathed, his clothes not even singed. All their attacks, which had drained so much power, hadn't even scratched him. Was this really just heavenly dragon class power? You guys are certainly passionate. In that case, let me return the favor a little, Riku said coolly. With that, he vanished, appearing in front of Greyfire Lucifuge, who was distorting space, and struck out with a cold punch, showing no mercy for her beauty. Crash. In that critical instant, Greyfire managed to summon a powerful defensive barrier with her vast demonic power, hoping to block the blow. It was pointless. The barrier was smashed to pieces, and Riku's punch sent the so-called silver-haired Annihilation Queen flying like a meteor, crashing far into the distance. A chain reaction followed. Inku, Akita, all of them each were knocked out with a single blow, left seriously wounded. This display left Seraphol and her peerage in utter silence. These were supposed to be the underworlds and the world's top powerhouses, yet they were being swatted aside one after another like children. Within seconds, only Xerxes Lucifer remained, warily facing Riku, deep in thought. Xerxes' look of indecision did not escape Riku's notice. Seeing this, Riku's lips curled into a smile, his interest clearly piqued. As a super devil, are you finally about to show your true power? Honestly, I thought you'd use it right from the start, Riku said leisurely, his golden eyes shimmering. Generally speaking, the Mao class is considered the pinnacle of strength. Beyond that is the level of the heavenly dragons Drake the Red Dragon Emperor, Albion the White Dragon Emperor, and the major gods of various pantheons. To summarize, once you step into that realm, you're essentially among the world's top 10. Not that there are only 10 beings at that level, but it's a benchmark, a way to distinguish the truly elite from the rest. Normally, peak Mao class is the absolute limit for a devil. However, there are rare exceptions. Some devils, through prodigious talent or unique circumstances, manage to break past that limit and reach another realm, qualifying as super devils who surpass the limits imposed by their own race. Xerxes Lucifer was one such being. To be precise, among the devils, there were currently only 2 super devils, Xerxes Lucifer and Ajika Beelzebub. You even know about that power of mine. Xerxes offered a wry smile. Other than Ajika, his lifelong rival, no one else was supposed to know about this power. Xerxes had no idea how Riku found out. Xerxes was hiding such power? He's a super devil? On the other side, Seraphol and all the devils present stared at Xerxes in shock. This warm and gentle Mao was hiding something so deep? Despite being frustrated that Xerxes hadn't used his full power from the start, Seraphol and the others couldn't help but look at him with hope. After all, super devils were legendary in the underworld, rumored to rival the chief gods in power. Yet no devil had ever truly displayed such might before. Perhaps there were some, but they'd never revealed it. Thinking this, even Seraphol, who had already witnessed Riku's strength firsthand, couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe they really did stand a chance. Meanwhile, Shui and Jibril watched with bright, curious eyes, their interest fully awakened. Judging from Riku's reaction and the response of the devils, this so-called super devil was clearly something extraordinary. For both Drumroll and Shui, anything from another world was inherently fascinating. Otherwise, Shui would never have been so eager to fight. It's not that I don't want to use it. It's just that power is far too dangerous. Dangerous to the point that even I can't fully control it. Using it with my companions here would be far too reckless, Surge said with a bitter smile. It wasn't that he didn't want to unleash it, he just knew the risks. If he lost control, he could end up destroying the entire underworld. Do you think you still have a choice? Or have you decided to surrender? Riku looked Surge in the eye, calm as ever. As someone whose reputation had once been hyped up in fan circles, Riku was genuinely curious about him, hence the banter. Looks like I don't. I guess there's no helping it, Surge shook his head, his gaze sharpening. At that moment, the blood-red aura of destruction around Surge began to boil, turning a deep, bloody crimson, giving off a truly terrifying, violent aura. The quality and quantity of his power skyrocketed by a factor of at least 10. On top of that, his power of destruction grew even more deadly. Anyone, even those far stronger than Surge, would be in grave danger if struck head-on. Just by unleashing this power, the space around them shattered, revealing the blackness of the dimensional void. What's more, the entire underworld began to tremble. The ground split, the sky tore open, and an unstoppable wave of destruction swept across the land, making every devil in the underworld feel suffocated. Panic set in among the devils. It felt like the apocalypse. Surge thought he's actually been forced to use his true power. Across the vast underworld, a Beelzebub narrowed his eyes. Looks like this enemy is no joke. With that, he activated a special technique and disappeared from sight. Elsewhere, Thalbium Asmodeus fell silent. He was a bit shaken by Surge's true strength. But the fact that Surge had to be pushed this far. Was the enemy really that strong? He'd sent such a powerful force, and yet Surge was still forced to unleash his hidden might. Thalbium thought about going to help, but he hesitated. He didn't really have a way to get there in time. By the time he arrived, it would all be over. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. To refine a single destructive element to this level. Riku praised Surge, his interest burning even brighter. Your talent is truly astonishing. I'm not disappointed. No wonder Riku would be interested. This power is something else, Shui and Drumroll both murmured in awe. Shui, in particular, immediately began analyzing Surge's power, intent on using that data to boost her own abilities. So this is Surge's true strength. The power of a super devil? Even from afar, the other Ma'au could feel the terrifying pressure. Up close, Seraphal and the rest of the peerage were stunned. Just being grazed by this power would mean utter annihilation. Surge, you've been holding back all this time? Seraphal complained, a little aggrieved but also delighted. Apparently, he'd always been pulling his punches during their spars. That was a real blow to her pride. Surge's peerage, meanwhile, looked on with renewed hope. Perhaps they finally had a chance to win. Only Greyfialuzafuge remained calm, watching Surge with deep concern. She had suspected that Surge was hiding something. But even so, could he really win? Greyfia glanced at Riku, who seemed utterly unfazed by the aura of destruction, and felt a deep, gnawing sense of unease. For the first time in centuries, a man had made her this nervous. Chapter 61. Well then, let's continue this battle, Riku said with a gleam of excitement, his gaze sharpening as Surge unleashed world-shattering demonic power. With those words, Riku activated Heavenly Shift, and vanished, appearing instantly in front of Surge and throwing a punch imbued with terrifying force. Boom. Surge's expression turned serious. A dark crimson magic circle appeared in front of him, intercepting Riku's blow. The heavy sound echoed as Surge was sent flying back. But unlike other powerful foes, Surge wasn't left in a sorry state, he merely slid back a short distance before stabilizing himself. Riku's violent punch, landing on Surge's magic circle, only left a few cracks. Surge had defended against Riku's attack. This sight made Seraphal and the others feel a surge of hope. After all, Riku's previous display defeating every other Ma'au-class powerhouse with a single punch was simply too overwhelming. Riku glanced at the traces of power of destruction still clinging to his fist, shaking them off effortlessly. So you wove power of destruction into your magic circle and used it to annihilate my punch's force. No wonder you could withstand it, he commented with a smile, offering rare praise. Even with Surge unleashing his full power, it was unthinkable for anyone to easily block an attack from Riku, whose raw strength was enough to overpower even a heavenly dragon. But this method, using the power of destruction, was effective. While it had its limits, it was enough to erase most of Riku's force. The rest, Surge could handle with his defenses. This fight is turning out to be even harder than I imagined, Surge submitted, more solemn than ever. "But I have my own reasons for not backing down," he murmured, spreading his palm wide. In an instant, deep crimson destructive power coalesced into countless serpent-like forms, rushing at Riku and filling the air with ruinous energy, so intense it destabilized the very fabric of space. SSSSHHHH. Riku's response was simple and brutal. He barreled straight through the assault, smashing the dark red serpents into motes of light. The destructive aura did wear away at the defensive aura surrounding him, but Riku's regeneration outpaced the destruction. As Riku was about to reach Surge's eyes flashed, summoning a vast amount of power. The magic circle on his palm gleamed ominously. Boom. Suddenly, the dark red motes that Riku had shattered, as well as the snakes swirling around him, exploded violently, shaking the very heavens and earth. Distant cities trembled, buildings collapsing under the shock wave. Drumroll, Shui, and the others watching the battle immediately raised their defenses. For Greyfire and the devils present, especially those wounded, it took everything they had to protect themselves. The weaker ones scrambled to escape the area, battered and covered in dust. "That last move was pretty good. I have to give you some credit," Riku said as he shot out of the explosion zone, suddenly appearing above Surge with a sly grin. "So, I'll reward you with a real punch." Surge's expression changed. Without hesitation, he conjured layer after layer of defensive magic circles. If Riku was a brawler, then Surge was the mage no mage ever wanted to be caught in melee range by a warrior. Hirutora. As Surge defended, Riku unleashed his next attack. Instantly, a gigantic tiger formed from the power of destruction leapt forth, smashing into Surge with unstoppable might. Crack. There was no time to be shocked that Riku could wield the power of destruction. The shield Surge had so painstakingly erected were shattered layer by layer. Surge himself was sent crashing from the sky, plummeting down like a meteor. Only the last layer of his defenses remained, now riddled with cracks. Surge's face paled as he desperately tried to reinforce his defenses. The clash of power of destruction against power of destruction was brutal. Even if Surge's own power was purer, he could no longer obliterate Riku's attacks as easily as before. Boom. In less than a split second, Surge was slammed into the ground, smashing open a second massive crater. The earth trembled, fissures spreading out from the impact. Where the destructive energy touched, the earth was erased on a molecular level. As if some monstrous force had taken a huge bite out of the land. And Surge? He lay deep within the earth, his condition unknown. Seraphol and the devil stared, eyes wide, shocked to their core. Surge, the legendary super devil, had unleashed truly monstrous power. Yet, he was still being completely overpowered by this man. This was simply too absurd. Why can he use power of destruction? Greyfire, ever the serious and detail-oriented one, was shaken, but more than that, she was puzzled by this crucial detail. The power of destruction is the symbol of the Baal clan, first among the 72 pillars. Only those of the Baal bloodline, or children of the Baal Grimoire union like Surge and Ryaz, can use it. Among the younger generation of Baal, not even all of them have awakened it. There are barely enough people in the whole world who can use it to count on one hand. Yet this outsider, Riku, could wield the power of destruction and seemingly to an extreme degree. It was simply unbelievable. Not bad at all, Shui remarked, a faint glimmer of data running through her eyes. She lightly raised her pure white finger, and a small swirl of crimson destructive power appeared. She muttered to herself, analyzing its structure. If Greyfire and the devils could see this, they'd probably question reality, no, their very existence. In just a moment, thanks to Riku and Shui, what was supposed to be one of the rarest abilities among devils was suddenly everywhere. This level of damage won't kill you. So you might as well come back out, Riku said nonchalantly, floating in the sky and looking down at the dust-choked battlefield. You make it sound so easy, Surge scoffed, dragging himself out of the massive crater a few seconds later, his face pale as he looked up at Riku. The aura of destruction around him was now even more unstable, dangerously so. If he lost control, he'd destroy not only himself, but everything nearby. This destruction mode granted Surge's transcendent power, but it was a double-edged sword. The fluctuations in Surge's aura made Seraphol, Greyfire, and all the devils present sink into despair. Sometimes, the birth of hope only means a greater fall into despair. Can you tell me how you're able to use power of destruction? Surge asked, shaking his head and giving a wry smile. I learned from you, Riku replied calmly, glancing at Surge. With the source of chaos energy, as long as he assimilated a given power, he could create or convert it at will. Converting ordinary demonic energy was trivial. Even a special and rare energy like the power of destruction, after fighting Surge for so long, could be replicated and transformed just as easily. You learned it from me? Riku's offhand reply left Surge, Seraphol, and all the devils looking dumbfounded. Seriously? The power of destruction is a bloodline inheritance. How can you just learn it? Anyway, I'm starting to get bored with this fight. If we keep dragging it out, things could get dangerous, so I'll just end it now, Riku said abruptly. Xerxes' heart clenched at those words, and he desperately tried to stabilize his rampaging power. In that moment, Riku's right hand was suddenly covered in a crimson gauntlet, leaving Xerxes, Seraphol, Greyfire, Tanin, and all the other powerhouses present staring in shock. The boosted gear? You're the current Red Dragon Emperor? Xerxes' pupils contracted, his voice tense. The Red Dragon Emperor, huh? Well, mine is a little different. But whatever, think what you think, Riku said with a small shrug. His gauntlet was purer than the sacred gear of this world, lacking any curse, and its potential was far greater. Balance breaker. As the others puzzled over Riku's words, he spoke quietly. The green jewel embedded in the gauntlet flashed, then crimson light enveloped Riku. Not good. Xerxes felt powerless to stop what was happening. A second later, Riku appeared before them clad in an aura of regal, blood-red armor. The sheer pressure of his presence soared to an unthinkable level, casting the entire underworld beneath a draconic might so fierce that the land itself seemed to cry out, the sky quaking, all of the underworld trembling. Every being in the underworld felt suffocated beneath the oppressive aura. Those closest Xerxes, Seraphol, and the other powerhouses could only stare in awe and terror. Is this really the boosted gear? Xerxes and the rest were shaken, both astonished and deeply doubtful. This balance breaker was unlike anything they'd ever seen, far more stylish, and the draconic aura was much purer, without a trace of the curse they knew so well. And even though a sacred gear could grant power to slay gods and Ma'o, if its wielder was already stronger than Ma'o class, stronger even than a heavenly dragon, could the so-called balance breaker really offer such a huge increase? Could a balance breaker be amplified so much? In the face of Riku's overwhelming power, Xerxes simply fell silent. Riku was just too mysterious, powerful, enigmatic, and clearly holding back other trump cards. Was the underworld really capable of resisting someone like this? Seeing Xerxes' fighting spirit fade, Riku's own interest faded as well. Looks like you're out of will to fight. In that case, it's time to bring this battle to a close. Riku's tone was as calm as ever. Hey, Xerxes gave a helpless laugh, his eyes sharpening with one last glimmer of pride. Though Riku's power far surpassed his own, he was still a Ma'o, he wouldn't yield to anyone's strength. That's more like it, Riku nodded approvingly. Boom. No one saw how Riku vanished and reappeared before Xerxes, only that, a split second later, Xerxes was sent flying, the defensive barrier of destruction magic around him shattering as he spewed blood and crashed to the ground like a meteor, shaking the land. But this time, Xerxes had no strength left to rise. He could only gaze up at the underworld's purple sky, his power of destruction fading, his body reverting to its normal state. Defeat total, crushing defeat. Xerxes lost. Seraphol, Greyfire, and the rest did not blame Xerxes for his loss. They just stood in silent shock. It wasn't that Xerxes was weak, he was incredibly strong, but his opponent was simply in a league beyond them all. In their understanding, only beings like Aphis or the Great Red stood at such an unreachable height. Now, there was another. Where on earth had this monster come from? Seraphol smiled bitterly. How laughable that they'd initially thought he was just a peak Ma'o class fighter. Sorry, all you Ma'oan nobles, consider yourselves captured. Riku hovered in the air, gazing down at the battered, defeated devils, a faint smile on his lips as he made his declaration. The devils could only bow their heads in defeat. Although, it looks like we have more guests coming, Riku added, glancing at a point near Xerxes with an amused look. The devils were momentarily stunned. Jibril and Shui, who had been moving to Riku's side, also paused. Chapter 62. Suddenly, a spatial ripple appeared next to Xerxes. As Riku's words echoed through the sky, a new figure materialized before everyone's eyes. It was a man with short, pale green hair, striking features, and a perpetually languid expression. But nobody present dared to underestimate him. He was Adiko Beelzebub, one of the four great Ma'o of the underworld, Xerxes' lifelong friend and rival. Riku knew even more. Adiko Beelzebub, like Xerxes, was one of the few super devil among the others, brilliant in formulas and magic theory, and the creator of the evil peace system that revolutionized devil society. So, I got caught right away, huh? Adiko stood at Xerxes' side, looking up at Riku floating above, shrugging with a wry smile. Well, you were trying to pull a little trick. Otherwise, I might not have noticed you so easily, Riku replied, peering down at Adiko, amusement in his eyes. In the entire underworld or the whole world, there were almost none who could claim to surpass Adiko in the arts of sorcery. If there were, It would only be someone who didn't truly understand Ajika Beelzebub's true capabilities. Even so, using his masterful sorcery to perfectly conceal his presence and approach Surge, Ajika had almost managed to evade even Riku's senses. If Ajika hadn't intended to rescue Surge, Riku might not have detected him at all. Considering Riku's current level of perception, almost no one could slip past him, but Ajika had nearly succeeded. Sigh, nothing for it, then. Ajika twirled a lock of hair around his finger, resigned. He'd planned a stealthy rescue operation, but he hadn't even gotten started before being caught. Surge, no wonder you lost so badly. Ajika glanced down at his friend, still lying in the crater, and shook his head. Cough. There was no helping it. He's just too strong. Maybe only someone powerful like Aphis could hope to win against him, Surge answered weakly. Seems that way. Ajika didn't disagree, but looked gravely at Riku. There were other legendary beings on that level, Trigza and the Great Red, along with Aphis, but Trigza was sealed by the god of the Bible, and the Great Red wandered the dimensional gap. Of those active in the world, perhaps only Aphis could fight Riku. Faced with such overwhelming power, even Ajika felt a heavy pressure. Meanwhile, Seraphol and the other devils felt no joy at Ajika's arrival, only deep anxiety. If even Ajika were to be captured, that would mean 3 of the 4 Ma'au and most of the underworld's elite would become prisoners, leaving only 1 Ma'au to stand alone. How could the underworld possibly resist Riku's group then? Enough small talk. Ajika Beelzebub, are you planning to fight me and win, or do you intend to escape? Riku said coolly. Well, originally I wanted to sneak everyone out, but that's clearly not going to work. Fighting isn't a real option either, so I guess escape is all that's left, huh? Ajika spread his hands in a laid-back gesture. His demeanor was completely relaxed, as if he felt no pressure at all. This made Seraphol twitch and left Surge speechless. While escape was logically the right move, why did it sound so infuriating coming from Ajika? Even so, you don't really intend to run, do you? Riku exposed Ajika without hesitation, seeing straight through the clever, eccentric Ma'au. So, why don't you just tell us your true goal? Caught me, huh? Ajika shrugged, dropping all pretense. If that's how it is, there's no point pretending anymore. From my observation, whether it's high-class devils, peak Ma'au level like Seraphol and Greyfire, or even a super devil like Surge, you could kill any of us at any time. Even the head of House Phoenix, you have the power to obliterate him outright, but you haven't. In fact, I haven't sensed any killing intent from you. That, together with the fact you stopped Surge when he was about to destroy the underworld itself, tells me you have no interest in mass slaughter. Not a single high-class devil has actually died during all this. Ajika watched Riku calmly as he spoke. More than that, it looks like your goal is to rule the underworld, but you don't want to rule by force and terror. You're capturing the leaders, showing your overwhelming strength, and seeking to have us submit to you, Ajika concluded. Interesting, Riku's eyes sparkled with amusement. But you're wrong about one thing, while conquering the underworld is my goal, it's only the first step, a small goal, really. If I wanted to, I could wipe out every strong devil here and reach the same result. Ajika's expression froze, eyes sharpening at Riku's words. Surge and the others were just as stunned. But, such a result attained only through violence, wouldn't be satisfying to me. The prize wouldn't feel complete, Riku added with a softer tone. Hearing this, Ajika and the rest all breathed a little easier. Of course, that's assuming you don't resist. If you try to fight back, I won't hesitate to do something a bit more dangerous, Riku finished with a sudden, sharp edge to his tone. That made Ajika and all the other devils break out in cold sweat. Riku's words were like a roller coaster, one moment reassuring, the next terrifying. It made them want to punch him, but there was nothing they could do. But, I can give you all a chance. Riku looked down at Ajika, Surge, Greyfire, and the assembled devils of the underworld, his voice calm and steady. His words made everyone tense up, listening with bated breath, afraid to miss a single syllable. After all, this concerned the fate of the entire underworld. I can let you all go. I'll give you 1 week to prepare, gather the strongest forces you can muster, and choose the battlefield yourselves. Whatever traps you want to set, you're free to use them. Riku raised a finger, gazing down from above with the bearing of a king. And then, with absolute strength, I'll crush you all. His words left Ajika, Surge, and all the other devils completely stunned. It sounded arrogant, almost unbearably so. But the worst part was, he actually had the strength to back it up. If you lose, then from that moment on, you'll have to obey my orders without question. Riku continued, his tone calm, but with an unshakable dominance. And if we win? Then you promise never to interfere with the underworld again, Surge quickly replied, immediately stating their only demand. Greyfire, Seraphol, and the rest all looked over at him. "Well, that was my intention from the start," Ajika echoed. "We simply can't afford the alternative." Everyone else fell silent. He was right, they had no way to avoid the consequences. The underworld was their foundation, their home. "You're surprisingly reasonable. Still, you've made the smartest possible choice." Riku released his balance breaker, the gauntlet vanishing as he suppressed his aura. The tremors shaking the underworld faded away as he clapped his hands with a hint of approval. "I'm sure you still have plenty of stubborn old devils left. How you convince them is your business. Now, before I change my mind, you'd best leave." Riku teleported over to stand beside Shui and Jibril, looking entirely unconcerned. At this, Ajika supported Surge, while Greyfire, Tanin, and the other injured elites gathered together. Knock, knock, knock. At that moment, Seraphol could be heard pounding on the inside of the ceiling barrier, clearly making her wishes known. She wanted out. Seraphol is still a Mao, one of our most important assets. Couldn't you?" Surge tried, giving a wry smile. "Denied." Riku glanced at him and refused flatly. "Disobedient maids deserve to be disciplined. She's my trophy, and after she tried to sell me out, I'm still not happy with her. When you're ready for your rematch, I'll return her to you." Surge's mouth twitched. He hadn't expected Riku to hold such a grudge. Seraphol was supposed to be one of the underworld's top leaders, after all. "Ahem. I suppose that's that, then." Surge scoffed, giving Seraphol a helpless good luck look. Seraphol stared in disbelief. Wasn't she a Mao? Wasn't she one of the highest authorities in the underworld? How could they just leave her behind like that? "What about Seraphol's peerage?" Surge asked again, unable to help himself. "Oh, take them if you want. Keeping them here would just get in the way, and besides, they eat too much," Riku said offhandedly, not even glancing at the group of devils who had been sealed by Shui and Jibril. The 10 powerful devils nearly coughed up blood at those words. What did he mean, in the way? They were still strong devils. But a glance at Riku reminded them of the overwhelming gap in power. All they could do was swallow their bitterness and shoot him resentful looks. "Oh, and the head of the Phoenix family, yeah, you. Come with me. I'll be visiting your house next," Riku called out to the Phoenix Patriarch. "Me?" Phoenix Patriarch, Philip Phoenix, pointed at himself in disbelief. "Yes, you," Riku replied casually. Philip Phoenix's mouth twitched with despair. This was a disaster if Riku, a walking catastrophe, stayed at his mansion, and he accidentally offended him, he could get wiped out at any moment, and no one would dare plead his case. Surge and Ajika both gave him looks of deep sympathy. The other devil nobles quickly averted their eyes, terrified that Riku might change his mind and pick one of them instead. At least the Phoenix clan was tough, they wouldn't survive a direct hit. Left with no choice, Philip Phoenix reluctantly flew over to Riku's side. Riku then had Shui and Jibril undo the ceiling barriers, releasing Seraphol's peerage and sending them back to Surge and the others. Once everything was settled, Surge, Ajika, and the high-ranking devils all left the scene with heavy hearts. They had only 1 week to recover, strategize, and handle the chaos spreading through the underworld. If they failed, it would mean the end of the underworld. "Surge, Ajika. You two bastards, just wait." Seraphol yelled, glaring at her allies as they slipped away through Ajika's magic teleportation circle. She gritted her teeth, furious and indignant. "It's over for me." Then, thinking about what awaited her, Seraphol trembled. That dreadful experience was about to repeat itself. Her reaction made even Philip Phoenix shudder. Was Riku really that terrifying? Even the usually unfazed, reckless Mao was reduced to this. A disaster had truly come to his house. "Riku, you're so cool," Shui said, gazing up at him with sparkling eyes. "Master, it seems there are even more powerful beings in this world than we thought. But you're still the strongest. I can't wait to see more," Jibril added, her eyes shining with anticipation and obsession. "This is only the beginning, you'll see even greater foes in the future." Riku nodded, patting Shui's head with a gentle smile. Then, he glanced at the pale-faced Seraphol and dispelled the ceiling barrier. "We'll continue your training when we get home." Riku put extra emphasis on training, making Seraphol shudder uncontrollably, on the verge of tears. Chapter 63 The Phoenix family mansion was a lavish, far more so than the Nabirius estate. Everything was elegant and refined, exquisite furnishings, fine chandeliers, priceless paintings, each detail catching the eye. Although both the Phoenix and Nabirius houses were among the 72 pillars of pure-blood devil nobility, only the Phoenix clan possessed the legendary item capable of reviving anyone who isn't yet truly dead, the Phoenix Tears. Thanks to these tears, the Phoenix clan enjoyed immense profits and reputation, both in the underworld and throughout the world of devils. At this moment, however, The Phoenix Manor was far livelier than usual, as several new faces arrived, drawing everyone's attention. "Father, you've finally returned." A young girl with golden twin drills and sky-blue eyes, delicate features, and a pink and white dress came running into the grand hall, smiling brightly. "Oh. Lady Seraphol, you're here too. I'll prepare tea right away." Noticing Seraphol among the guests, the girl quickly offered a respectful bow. "And to our other guests, please wait just a moment." She glanced with curiosity at Riku, Jibril, and Shui, her etiquette flawless, her bearing that of a true Ajaw-sama. "Ahem, Riku, this is my daughter, Ravel Phoenix. She's still young and maybe a little inexperienced, please forgive her if she's lacking in any way." Philip Phoenix cleared his throat anxiously, worried that Riku might be offended by his daughter greeting him after Seraphol. "Ravel, huh? That's a good name." Riku looked at the girl and smiled softly. Ravel, when she first appeared in the original story, acted the classic tsundere. But in truth, she was this very sort of Ajaw-sama, her initial behavior mostly because she disliked Sai. A bit of pride, yes, but really a well-bred, likable girl. "Ravel, thank Riku for his compliment," Philip prompted his daughter quickly, not daring to offend their new guest. "Uh-oh, thank you for your kind words, Mr. Riku," Ravel replied, a little startled. She managed a sweet smile, giving Riku a somewhat curious look as she bowed again. She couldn't help but wonder, who was this young man, that even her father treated him with such caution, and even Lady Seraphol seemed to take second place. Very polite. "Now then, would you please prepare 3 adjoining guest rooms for us?" Riku smiled, reaching out and gently patting Ravel on the head. The gesture left Ravel blushing faintly. No one outside her family had ever been so familiar with her before. Her first instinct was to step away, but remembering her role as a proper hostess, she forced herself to stand firm, enduring the head pat without protest. Riku's golden eyes flashed with a touch of satisfaction. As expected, this girl was truly impressive. "Hey, Riku, just how long are you planning to keep your hand there?" Shui tugged on his sleeve, rolling her eyes. "Ah, master, interested in this girl already? Want me to help you out?" Jibril teased with a mischievous grin. Riku shot Jibril a sharp glare and withdrew his hand, instead patting Shui on the head to appease her. Jibril's teasing drew Seraphol out of her gloom, and she shot Riku a strange look. "You Ravel stammered, face still red, unsure what to make of it all. Jibril's words had rattled her more than a little. As for Philip Phoenix, his mouth twitched. If Riku really set his sights on Ravel, should he be happy? Or terrified? "Don't overthink it," Riku reassured her. "Ravel, please go prepare the rooms." "Oh, okay. Right away." Ravel nodded rapidly, hurrying off. "Philip, your daughter's quite something on many levels," Riku said, watching her retreat with a mysterious smile. "Ah, if my daughter can earn your praise, it's her honor." Philip managed a nervous laugh, unable to guess what Riku was thinking. A few moments later, Ravel had finished preparing the rooms for their guests. Riku promptly led a despairing Seraphol into one of them. After putting up a few soundproofing and privacy barriers, he began yet another training session. Were it not for those barriers, the sounds from inside would have left the household blushing furiously. But don't get the wrong idea, Riku didn't actually go all the way. As much as he liked beautiful women, he wasn't about to cross that line with someone whose heart wasn't in it. For Seraphol, that was her one unbreakable rule. Had he tried to force her, she'd have fought to the bitter end. That boundary, though, only made the training all the more enjoyable for Riku. After all, disciplining a Ma'au was its own reward. Meanwhile, Shui and Jibril, left to their own devices, passed the time with chess in Shui's room. As expected, Jibril was repeatedly trounced, to the point where Shui started to outright complain about her lack of skill. As for Ravel, when she saw Riku and Seraphol enter the same room, she was utterly bewildered, her heart pounding as she wondered what exactly their relationship was. She quietly filed the scene away, inventing her own, very wrong, explanation. If Seraphol ever found out, she'd probably cough up blood in fury. While Riku trained Seraphol, Surge, Adika and the other high-ranking devils who'd returned to Ma'au Ridge were already convening a new emergency meeting. This time, every major power in the underworld was represented. The debate was fierce. The stubborn old guard refused to accept Riku's terms, pushing for all-out war. Surge, Adika, and the pro-negotiation faction, those who'd fought Riku and survived, argued fiercely for compromise. In the end, Surge settled it with one offhand remark: "If you think you can handle it, why don't you try fighting Riku yourself and rescuing Seraphol? Maybe you'll get lucky." With that, the hardliners had nothing left to say. Everyone's pride was wounded, the underworld's honor trampled underfoot, but when it came to actually facing Riku in battle, there was no braviness left, only fear. No one dared underestimate him after the fate of the previous subjugation team. In the end, the opposition of the conservative nobles and elders could only swallow their objections and obey the orders of Sirsts and Adika, the two Ma'o. Soon after, a series of shocking and sensational announcements came from the highest echelons of the underworld. For example, the Nabirius family was charged with heinous crimes. To prove their guilt, Sirsts publicly displayed the various horrifying items unearthed from the Nabirius family's secret chambers. Countless devils, UK, and reincarnated devils used as experimental subjects. This revelation ignited the fury of the devil's populace. Ordinary devils were enraged at the darkness of the Nabirius family, and soon public outrage spread, even targeting other noble houses. After stirring up this storm, Sirsts then brought Riku's name into the discussion. He declared that Riku was not an invader, but rather an honored guest of the four great Ma'o. It was only because the Nabirius family had offended Riku that their hidden evils were exposed and brought to light. This further shocked the underworld. All the anger directed at Riku vanished, transferred to the disgraced Nabirius house. While some clever devils sensed that something wasn't quite right, they couldn't put their finger on it and chose to wait and see. Finally, a message came to calm the populace. The recent disturbances in the underworld were due to monsters unleashed by the Nabirius family breaking free and causing destruction. If left unchecked, they would have wrought havoc, but thanks to Riku's intervention, the threat was eliminated with minimal damage. This official story immediately placed Riku at the center of attention. Not only did he stop being seen as a threat, but he quickly became a hero of the underworld, even gathering a fan base. After all, the recent chaos had left every devil terrified. No one really understood what had happened now, at least there was a clear explanation. With the top brass of the underworld refusing to comment further, the matter was settled as fact and spread throughout devil society. Sirsts, Adika, and the other high nobles finally breathed a sigh of relief at this shift in public opinion. Pinning the blame on the already destroyed Nabirius family, a family whose demise was, if anything, overdue, they felt no guilt. If anything, it was just a matter of using trash as fertilizer. The underworld's authority took a slight hit, but it was a small price to pay. This was the perfect solution: don't offend Riku, and don't truly disgrace the underworld itself. All the while, Riku himself was unaware of any of this. Late at night, Riku closed his door with a satisfied smile, strolling out into the corridor. If one peeked into his room, they'd see ropes, candles, and other tools, and a red-faced, gritting her teeth yet limp Seraphol sprawled on the bed, unable to move. This man's vindictiveness was really something. He'd spent half a day training her. Where should I go next? Riku mused as he wandered the hall. Should he go find Shui and Drumroll for some games? That sounded appealing. Training Seraphol was satisfying on a spiritual level, but it only heightened other desires. He needed to let off some steam. Well, there's plenty of time. Might as well use this chance to open that platinum chest. With that thought, Riku leisurely roamed the Phoenix mansion. Along the way, every servant greeted him respectfully and offered assistance, but Riku simply waved them off. Before long, he arrived at the rooftop terrace, where Ravel was sitting, enjoying the night breeze, her white legs dangling from a stone sculpture. It was a scene of tranquil beauty. "Oh, Lord Riku, you're here to enjoy the wind too? The breeze tonight is really nice." Seeing Riku land nearby, Ravel hopped down, giving him a polite bow and a curious look. "Yeah, something like that." "Sorry to disturb you," Riku said with a gentle smile, nodding slightly. "Don't worry about me, just keep sitting there if you like." Ravel's cheeks colored a little at his words, and she looked a bit shy. Still, although she nodded, Ravel didn't move, simply remaining where she stood. Seeing this, Riku chuckled, shaking his head before sitting down on a stone sculpture himself. "Sorry if that was a bit rude, Lord Riku," Ravel said, face reddening further as she flew up to sit beside him. "If it's possible, could you drop the Lord part?" Riku rubbed his nose. "No, I can't. Lord is Lord. You're the honored guest of the Ma'o themselves, calling you by name would be rude." Ravel was surprisingly firm, almost stubborn on this point. Riku knew there was no convincing her, so he let it go. "As you like. Thank you for understanding, Lord Riku." Ravel smiled, clearly delighted to keep using the honorific. Riku just smiled and said nothing, instead placing his hand atop the nearby platinum chest. Instantly, the familiar sound of the lock opening rang out, and the system prompt echoed in his mind. Ding. "Congratulations, Master, you have opened a platinum chest and obtained a Bloodline Fusion spell card." Bloodline Fusion spell card, an improved version of the polymerization card from Yu-Gi-Oh! The original allows you to fuse different monsters into a new one. The Bloodline Fusion spell card allows for the perfect fusion of two bloodlines. Uses remaining, 1 a Bloodline Fusion spell card, huh? That's not bad. Riku smiled. Looks like I'll have to think of a way to obtain the Phoenix bloodline for fusion. Though the card sparked some ideas, Riku wasn't in a hurry, so he simply tossed it into his system storage and lay back to enjoy the night breeze. Lord Riku, isn't his place wonderful? Ravel swung her legs gently, glancing at the boy lying next to her. Her eyes were filled with admiration, almost like she was gazing at an idol. It's nice. The only thing missing is a starry sky, which is a bit of a shame. Riku tilted his head, speaking casually. Chatting with Ravel helped calm his impulses, the tension slowly fading away. A sky full of stars. I wish I could see it too, Ravel said, eyes sparkling with interest. You've never seen the stars? Wait, does that mean you've never been to the human world? Riku asked in surprise. Yeah, father never lets me go, he says it's too dangerous. As for my brother, he is always busy, and he rarely goes to the human world himself, Ravel replied, tilting her head, looking a little troubled. But, Lord Riku, don't get the wrong idea, it's not like I really want to go or anything, Ravel added at the end, huffing a bit. Don't get all tsundere in a place like this. Though honestly, this kind of attitude is pretty cute. Riku shook his head slightly, amused. Do you want me to take you to the human world for a visit? Riku suddenly suggested, rubbing his chin. Eh? Really? At those words, Ravel's eyes lit up instantly. But then she suddenly realized what she'd just agreed to, her cheeks turning bright red, looking a little flustered. Of course I can, Riku replied with a small smile, teasing her. But are you really going to trust me just like that? What if I'm a bad guy, or if I'm not strong enough? You could get caught by exorcists and dissected, you know. Ravel was startled at first, but then puffed up her cheeks and said, Geez, Lord Riku, don't scare me like that. If I'm with Lord Riku, I'm sure everything will be fine. After all, Lord Riku is the hero of the underworld, and the honored guest of the mouse, Ravel said, hugging her knees and looking sideways at Riku, her eyes filled with admiration. Huh? That left Riku a bit dumbfounded, and he frowned slightly. Hero? Honored guest of the mouse? What is this? Did Sersts and the others do something? Riku quickly guessed what might have happened and looked at Ravel with a strange expression. That's right, Ravel said, her face shining with admiration, and she began to enthusiastically explain everything that had happened recently. Especially since Ravel had always looked up to heroes since she was a child, she spoke with even more excitement. They really did something. Speechless again. After hearing her explanation, Riku was left speechless. I was clearly an invader, I even beat up half the underworld's high-ranking officials, and they somehow managed to turn me into some kind of heroic figure. Of course, Riku understood Sersts and the others' intentions. And since this situation didn't bring him any trouble, he just let it go. Hey, Ravel, how about making a contract with me? Riku got up, sat up straight, and reached out his hand to Ravel. A contract? Ravel asked, confused. Yeah, a contract. If you sign it, you'll become my servant and gain great power. I'll also protect you, Riku explained simply. About that. Hearing this, Ravel hesitated for a moment, looking conflicted. After a few seconds, she finally showed a pure and sincere smile. If it's with Lord Riku, I'd be happy too. That made Riku smile as well. This girl really is likable. He immediately took out a contract card and had Ravel drip a drop of blood onto it. In that instant, a special bond was formed between them, and the magic power inside Ravel's body began to increase at a terrifying rate. Lord Riku? Ravel couldn't control the sudden surge of magic power and cried out in shock, completely confused as to what was happening. Relax, didn't I say it? Making a contract with me gives you great power, Riku said with a gentle smile, patting Ravel's head to reassure her. At the same time, Riku also gained a special bloodline, that of the House of Phoenix. The Saiyan God bloodline and the Phoenix bloodline clashed inside him, and even Riku felt uncomfortable, so he had to keep the two bloodlines separated for now. I see. Hearing that, Ravel's face filled with wonder, her admiration growing even stronger. If just making a contract with Lord Riku gives me this much power, then just how strong is Lord Riku himself? Ravel, what's wrong? At that moment, the whole mansion was alarmed by Ravel's explosive surge of magic power. Philip Phoenix rushed over with a group of people, anxiously looking at Ravel. But when he saw Riku, he froze. The way the two of them were acting was way too close. Father, it's nothing. I just formed a special contract with Lord Riku. This power was granted to me by Lord Riku, Ravel said, feeling a little guilty, like a little girl caught doing something bad. Hearing that, Philip Phoenix was stunned, staring at Riku in shock, his mind in turmoil. Just a contract, and Ravel already has Mao-level magic power? This is way too broken. In that case, Ravel, you need to properly thank Mr. Riku. I'll go to bed now, You two take your time talking. Philip Phoenix coughed awkwardly and quickly excused himself. Looks like Rico really has his eyes on my daughter. Maybe having Rico visit our house is a great thing after all. In such a short time, my daughter now has Ma'au level magic power. With a bit of training, she'll soon be a Ma'au class powerhouse herself. If the underworld really does end up under Riku's rule, at least we'll be protected. And if Riku loses, the Ma'aus won't blame us for getting close to him. Either way, we win. With that, Philip Phoenix stopped worrying about his daughter being so easily kidnapped and went back to his room in high spirits. Meanwhile, in two other rooms of the mansion, Shui and Drumroll also felt the surge of magic, both muttering that Riku really did go after Ravel, but didn't say much else. After all, they couldn't stop him, so they might as well let things happen. Besides, Riku isn't the type to abandon his previous women just because there's a new one. As for Seraphol, after finally getting cleaned up and taking a bath, she also sensed the aura and just pouted. Sorry, Lord Riku, father was just worried about me, Ravel said, a bit embarrassed. It's fine, Riku shook his head, then patted Ravel's head again before jumping down from the sculpture. I'm a bit tired, so I'll go back to sleep. You should get some rest, too, Ravel. Don't worry too much about the flow of magic power, Riku waved at her. Okay, Lord Riku, I will, Ravel answered sweetly, nodding. With that, Riku didn't say anything else and teleported back to his own room, laying down on his bed without hesitation. System, use the Bloodline Fusion spell card to fuse the Cyan God and Phoenix bloodlines. Chapter 64. After Riku finished speaking, the Bloodline Fusion magic card in the system storage space disappeared. Immediately, a unique power entered Riku's body, causing his nearly rampaging Cyan God bloodline and Phoenix bloodline to merge together. There was no pain at all, as if nothing had happened. Within a few seconds, the fusion was complete. That's it? Riku muttered, a bit puzzled. He'd expected something grand. So, what's the situation with my bloodline now? Riku frowned. With a thought, Riku directly cut off his own hand. The instant it was severed, it turned into a burst of flames, and in the next second, it was completely restored, as if nothing had happened. As expected, it's a perfect fusion. To be precise, the Cyan God bloodline has completely assimilated the Phoenix bloodline's regenerative power. Riku smiled in satisfaction. With the Phoenix bloodline's recovery ability plus super regeneration, even if he faces enemies far beyond him, he can still wear them down. The Cyan God bloodline gets drastically stronger after recovering from serious injuries. The more he fights, the stronger he becomes. Combined with the Phoenix's recovery, it's downright terrifying. Not to mention, he also has the divine essence of the war god and the concept of strongest, making it much easier to surpass his limits compared to others. Of course, if he gets the chance, he'd like to evolve the Phoenix factor in his bloodline even further, maybe into a true Phoenix or even a vermilion bird. That would be truly broken. Next, Riku kept experimenting with his regeneration. After all, with the ability to rewind time on his side, he didn't have to worry. But while Riku wasn't worried, somewhere far away, a certain blonde man with a phoenix crest on his body, Phoenix family's third son, Razor Phoenix, was panicking. He'd just lost contact with his sister, Ravel, and even the bishop piece that marked her as his servant had vanished and returned to him. That could only mean one thing: the reincarnated devil had died. Faced with this, Razor Phoenix didn't hesitate to use a teleportation magic circle and rushed back to the family mansion. However, when he and his peerage arrived, he was stunned. Not only was Ravel fine, but her power was now stronger than his. Ravel, why did you disappear from my bishop piece all of a sudden? Razor Phoenix ignored the change in her power and focused on this question. You could see he really cared about his little sister. Razor, you're back, Ravel said, a bit embarrassed. It's probably because I made a contract with Lord Riku. Huh? Razor was dumbfounded. Lord Riku? Wait, Lord Riku. Is it that Riku? Suddenly, Razor came to his senses, recalling the underworld's hottest news story. He frowned. The Mouse honored guest, even the hero of the underworld. Honestly, it all felt a little too surreal. Humphrey, Razor, you're being way too rude to Lord Riku. That won't do at all. You should call him Lord. Ravel said seriously. I haven't even settled accounts with him yet. He actually went and stole my cute little sister. Razor looked genuinely displeased. Ravel was safe, even stronger, and he was glad for that, but having her stolen was just unacceptable. After all, his peerage was missing the little sister element. It's not that he had any inappropriate thoughts about Ravel, he just wanted to satisfy that vanity, which is why he traded pieces with their mother. Stolen? No way. Ravel glanced away, her face reddening a little in embarrassment and irritation. Humphrey, he dares to leave my harem without a little sister tomorrow, I'll find him and take you back. Just wait, Ravel. Razor declared seriously. Before Ravel could even react, Razor took his peerage and left. Sigh. I just hope Lord Riku goes easy on him, Ravel said helplessly. She knew that Razor wasn't just acting out of vanity, he just didn't feel safe with her in someone else's hands. In this family, whether it was Ravel's parents or any of her brothers, she was truly doted on to the extreme. As for Razor's situation, Riku was oblivious. Today, he simply got up and lazed about, while Shui and Jibril sneakily climbed into his bed to sleep next to him. Riku noticed, but didn't do anything, he just held the two girls and slept. As for Seraphul, she was conflicted. Even though Riku had sealed her powers, he never actually restricted her movements. She could leave whenever she wanted. But in the end, Seraphul just flopped down and went to sleep, defeated. Because if she ran away and got caught, the consequences. Just thinking about it gave her chills. She absolutely didn't want to give that awful man another excuse to discipline her. The next morning, after washing up and getting dressed, Riku, Shui, and Jibril were invited by the Phoenix family maids to breakfast. Sitting casually at the grand dining table, Philip Phoenix greeted Riku enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Ravel kept sneaking glances at Riku, clearly lost in thought. Seraphul-sama, father, Ravel, good morning, Razor greeted as he arrived, first addressing Seraphul the Ma'au and his family. Mr. Riku, Miss Jibril, Miss Shui, sorry for any poor hospitality, Razor then said politely to Riku. Riku looked at Razor with a faint smile, nodding slightly. The guy's hostility toward him was obvious. And seeing Ravel's embarrassed look just now, Riku instantly understood the reason. The atmosphere grew a little awkward, so Philip, the Phoenix family patriarch, hurriedly coughed to get everyone started on breakfast and shot his son a warning look. Joking aside, offending this guest is basically a death wish. After a luxurious meal, as Philip was about to say something, Razor suddenly stood up. Since you and my sister have made a contract, I can't help but be a little concerned. So, Mr. Riku, would you mind letting me see just how strong you really are? Razor said, with deep meaning. Riku just chuckled, giving Razor a playful look. Shui and Jibril both shot Razor odd glances. As for Seraphul, she just gave him a sympathetic look. This guy really didn't know what he was in for. Probably due to the information lockdown, he must think Riku is just as strong as the rumors say, on par with an ultimate class devil, so he thinks he can win with his immortality. Razor, sit down this instant. At this moment, Philip Phoenix stood up in exasperation and roared. Only the true high-ranking members of the underworld knew the details about Riku, and the information was completely locked down. He understood what his son was thinking, and that's exactly why he was so angry. Good heavens, normally he wouldn't care about his son's antics, but this man was someone neither their family nor the entire underworld could afford to offend. Father? Seeing his father's reaction, Razor was taken aback. Wasn't this overreacting a bit? Even if Riku was a guest of the Maus, challenging him for his little sister shouldn't be such a big deal. Nisama, I think you should just give up. You're not a match for Lord Riku, Ravel also tried to dissuade him, shaking her head. How would you know unless we fight? Razor's pride was wounded, and he snapped back, feeling frustrated that even his family didn't believe in him. To say he couldn't win? Well, he was determined to prove everyone wrong. Wasn't it just someone with ultimate class devil strength? It's not like he'd never beaten someone like that before. So, what do you say? Do you dare accept my challenge? Of course, you're a guest of the Maus, so I won't force you. But as a man, you can't say you can't do it, right? Razor looked at Riku provocatively. Philip's face went pale with anger. This useless son. What an obvious attempt to goad me. I was planning to ignore you, but since you're insisting on walking into your death. Riku gave Razor a cool glance. So you agree? Razor was overjoyed. I'll give you a chance. If you can even stand for 3 seconds under my gaze, I'll give you the opportunity to challenge me, Riku said calmly. Jibril and Shui both smiled slightly, looking at Razor with strange expressions. Even Seraphul couldn't help but smirk. She might dislike Riku, but she couldn't deny his overwhelming strength. Razor was just asking for trouble. What did you say? Razor stiffened, his voice angry. In his view, Riku was utterly dismissing him. Razor's peerage was also glaring at Riku, finding his attitude toward Razor unforgivable. But in the next instant, Razor was struck speechless. Riku's golden eyes glanced at him indifferently, and a world-shaking aura erupted, engulfing the entire area. Under this pressure, Razor's peerage instantly collapsed to the ground, unable even to move, their faces filled with terror. Razor's pupils shrank, his face went deathly pale, and his body trembled, his very soul quaking. At that moment, all strength left him, his anger and courage were completely shattered, and only fear remained. With a thud, Razor's trembling body could no longer support itself, And he collapsed to his knees, looking at Riku in horror. "Looks like you're not qualified to challenge me, so don't bother me about it again," Riku shrugged, withdrawing his aura. As if he hadn't even heard Riku's words, Razor continued kneeling there, trembling, his eyes unfocused. At that moment, under Riku's aura, a deep psychological shadow had taken root. "Brought it on yourself," Seraphol muttered self-mockingly, shaking her head. Wasn't her own situation the same? "You're a million years too early to challenge Master," Drumroll said cheerfully. Shui didn't say anything, just shook her head. She couldn't understand why Razor would so irrationally challenge Riku. For Ravel to form a contract with Riku was the greatest fortune she could hope for. Though Razor seemed especially pitiful, Philip felt this was already the best possible outcome. Thankfully, Riku hadn't even bothered with his son's challenge, otherwise, the consequences. At that thought, Philip couldn't help shivering, feeling truly grateful. Ravel also looked helplessly at Razor. She'd told him not to be rash, but here they were. She quickly instructed the maids to help take Razor and his peerage away. "I'm sorry, Lord Riku. My brother was too impulsive," Ravel apologized. "My apologies as well, Lord Riku. I'll make sure to discipline him properly in the future," Philip Phoenix said, wiping cold sweat from his forehead with an awkward smile. Riku merely nodded, not taking it to heart. With that, this noisy morning finally came to an end. At Ravel's suggestion, Riku, Drumroll, Shui, and Seraphol leisurely went out to stroll around Phoenix territory. Eventually, Riku and Seraphol were recognized, causing quite a commotion, so they had to use magic to disguise themselves. In the blink of an eye, a week passed. During this week, Riku lived at ease, chatting with Shui and Ravel, going shopping, and occasionally catching Seraphol making mistakes, followed by some discipline, much to her embarrassment. After a week, Seraphol, once a Mao obsessed with magical girl cosplay, had been retrained into a magical girl cosplaying maid. And though she still gnashed her teeth at Riku, she had to admit she no longer really resisted when he did things to her body. It was as if she'd gotten used to it. This realization left Seraphol completely at a loss. Of course, Riku hadn't neglected Shui and Drumroll, either. Everything was as it should be, without words. Strangely enough, Ravel was the one Riku hadn't made any real moves on. As for Razor, he'd holed up in his room, refusing to come out, completely lost in self-doubt. Riku also spent time out searching for treasure chests. The bronze chests weren't worth mentioning, nothing useful for him now. He opened 3 silver chests, but 2 of them were useless, only one was barely worthwhile, a master chef level skill, which basically meant any dish he made would. Well, suffice to say, it would be irresistible to women. As for the 1 gold chest, the prize was pretty good, a bug-level healing item from Dragon Ball, 5 senzu beans. "Lord Riku, Lord Surge is calling. He says the location is ready." Philip Phoenix came to find Riku, who was lounging in the garden sunbathing, after glancing at Ravel, then quietly spoke. "Oh? It's finally ready, huh?" Riku's lips curled into a faint smile, his interest piqued. "Finally." Seraphol's eyes sparkled. At last, she could escape this hell. Chapter 65. It's finally about to begin. "I get to see Master's heroic figure again, how wonderful," Drumroll's eyes lit up as she said with a bright smile. Shui nodded, also revealing a gentle smile. "The stage is ready?" "What stage?" Only Ravel looked completely baffled, asking in confusion. "Ahem, it's just a friendly match between Lord Surge and Riku," Philip hurriedly said vaguely. I see." Ravel clearly didn't doubt her father's words and instead exclaimed in surprise. "That's really exciting," she said, full of interest. "Ravel, this match is being held in secret. It won't be broadcast," Philip quickly added. "Oh." Ravel looked disappointed. At this, Riku smiled wryly, gently patting Ravel's head before standing up. "So, where is the stage?" Riku asked. "The city of Luciferd in Mao Ridge," Philip replied respectfully. "Mao Ridge, huh? That's just convenient." Hearing this, Riku nodded slightly. The underworld's diamond-grade treasure chest was also at Mao Ridge, so this would save him an extra trip. "Then, let's head out," Riku said to Philip. In response, Philip nodded respectfully, then activated the transfer magic circle that had long been prepared, transporting everyone to Luciferd. They did not appear inside the city, but rather inside a massive building. As his vision changed, the first thing Riku saw was Surge and Dejiko Beelzebub. Behind them were a large number of powerful demons, all of whom were the underworld's top elites. All of them glared at Riku with hostility, but when Riku swept his indifferent gaze over them, they could not help but avert their eyes, pressured by his presence. "This is the stage you prepared? Aren't you worried that the aftermath might accidentally destroy the city?" Riku asked Surge with a strange look. Just the aftershocks of a battle at the Ma'au level would be enough to destroy this city, let alone a fight against all of the underworld's strongest. Of course, not here, Serge replied with a bitter smile. We're just making double preparations. Your power is too terrifying. I'm afraid if you break through that space, it will affect the outside world, Ajika Beelzebub added, looking somewhat exhausted. If we were to fight in the real world, the entire underworld would be at risk. That's why I prepared the stage inside a dimensional space, the kind we use for raiding games. Clearly, Ajika was the one who did most of the work this past week, otherwise, with his power, there's no way he'd look so tired. I see. Riku nodded. The underworld's raiding games use dimensional virtual spaces constructed by Ajika Beelzebub's magic, able to perfectly reproduce anything from reality. Before the match begins, please remove Seraphal's restraints, Riku. She's an important member of our side, Serge requested helplessly. Oh? Hearing this, Riku raised an eyebrow, but didn't say much more. He simply lifted the restrictions on Seraphal. In an instant, Seraphal, regaining her freedom, once again burst forth with her power, feeling tears well up inside. But before she could really show off her power, she saw Riku's playful expression, and her face froze, and she quickly suppressed her aura, hurriedly running over to Serge's side. This left Serge, Ajika, and Falbium Asmodeus all with odd expressions. Just what exactly had happened to Seraphal this past week under Riku's care? For her normally such a fearless Ma'au girl to be this afraid of him. Ahem, one last question. Will these two young ladies be participating in the battle? Falbium Asmodeus glanced at Jibril and Shui and asked. From Seraphal's servants, they had learned that Jibril and Shui both possessed power at the peak Ma'au level, so if they participated, the outcome would shift dramatically. I'll refrain from joining in. This is Master's solo show, Jibril said calmly. Although this made the underworld's elders breathe a sigh of relief, they couldn't help but shoot resentful looks, feeling that they were being underestimated. I won't join either, Shui shook her head. Compared to those elders and nobles who put their pride first, the four Ma'awa felt relieved instead. Seraphal was even flexing her fingers, eager to begin, wishing they could unite all the underworld's power and give Riku a taste of their might. Then let's get started. Some people seem pretty impatient already. Riku swept a playful glance over the Ma'au and the noble elders behind them, speaking slowly. Let's begin, Ajika Beelzebub said, nodding seriously as he started to manipulate his fingers like he was playing the piano. A huge magic circle immediately enveloped the hundreds of demons and Riku's group of 3, making them vanish from the scene. At the same time, the massive building was reinforced with exquisitely crafted wards and defenses. Outside, thousands of high-class devils poured their magic power into the defenses. Meanwhile, inside the dimensional space, Riku's view shifted again, and his surroundings became a valley with no exit. He stood at the bottom, surrounded by hundreds of devils, the weakest being high-class devils, positioned around the valley above, encircling him. Jibril and Shui floated high in the sky, quietly watching everything below. Now, let's begin. This is a battle for the underworld's future. Serge said gravely. Formation. Ajika called out, faced serious. In an instant, the hundreds of devils positioned throughout the valley all unleashed their peak power at once. The entire valley lit up as countless complex wards surrounded Riku. Each devil acted as a node. You really brought out some impressive stuff, Riku commented, feeling his body suddenly grow extremely heavy. Gravity had multiplied tremendously. At the same time, extreme cold and heat alternated with fire and ice. The surrounding space had also been solidified to the extreme, making any use of space abilities impossible. It was clearly sealed. These strange and powerful wards were obviously Ajika's handiwork. Facing you, we wouldn't dare to underestimate you even a little, Serge said, his face grave. Hey. Enough talk. Let's get started. Riku grinned, making his declaration. Don't worry, this will all be over soon. Riku's words caused the hearts of the Ma'awan noble devils who had fought him to sink. An uneasy feeling crept over them. Riku had left a deep impression, especially with his overwhelming power. Even Serge and the others didn't know if what they'd seen was truly Riku's limit or if he was hiding something even greater. So, even with all these preparations, even with Riku stepping willingly into their trap, they couldn't be confident of victory. Such arrogance. Of course, while the Ma'au thought this way, the stubborn underworld elders did not. They had absolute faith in Ajika Beelzebub's magic. Combined with the underworld's peak fighting strength, they really didn't believe they could lose. As soon as the words left their mouths, this group of underworld elders launched their attack. In an instant, at every node, powerful waves of magic began to surge. Then, all sorts of single-target attacks, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, appeared, all heading for Riku. In response, Riku calmly took a step and vanished from sight, advancing to meet the attacks head-on. At the same time, a fierce aura of destruction magic flared around him. Hirutora. Then, midair, Riku's eyes sharpened as he drew upon all his strength and swung both fists. In an instant, a gigantic, blood-red tiger appeared before everyone's eyes. The tiger, infused with a terrifying, destructive aura, roared as it smashed through the magical attacks coming its way and crashed fiercely into one side of the barrier. Rumble. The impact made the entire barrier tremble, and the hearts of all the devils present grew heavy. But then, Surge suddenly erupted with his power. The originally white barrier swiftly turned blood-red, easily fending off Riku's attack. Despite being struck by Riku's blow, the barrier only rippled slightly before returning to normal. Thanks to the reinforced space, what would have shattered space outside was only a minor ripple within this barrier space. Boom. Then, something surprised Riku. His daytime tiger, Hirutora, was affected by the spell formation, mixed in with the other devil's power, and now, in a stronger form, charged right back at him. Interesting, a counterattack, huh? Riku looked at Ajika with admiration, then unleashed another daytime tiger, causing the two attacks to collide and cancel each other out midair. Humphrey, you're out of options now. This is our power, your only outcome is to be worn down and defeated. One of the underworld elders shouted arrogantly. This made Surge, Seraphol, Ajika, and Falbium, the four Ma'o who had just begun to relax, frown and look at him in displeasure. Seriously, getting overconfident right after the first exchange? What an interesting barrier. It can not only withstand Master's attack but even reflect it, Drumroll said with keen interest. But, it can only be used here and can't be applied in real combat, Shui analyzed, data flashing through her eyes. Even though it's tailor-made to deal with Riku, they're still doomed. Yeah. Drumroll nodded with a smile. That's right, the barrier was made specifically to counter Riku. It couldn't be used anywhere else. But even if they were strong, could they possibly surpass the God of War? Even the God of War had been slain by Riku. Not to mention, Riku had become even stronger now. In the face of absolute power, all schemes become meaningless. Attack. At this, the elder realized he'd been too cocky and quickly shut up, while Surge issued a grim attack command. In an instant, a dense barrage of attacks appeared from all directions, each one powerful enough to threaten even a high-class devil. Hundreds of attacks intertwined, creating a dazzling spectacle of destructive force. Even two heavenly dragons would have a hard time if they didn't defend properly, but Riku remained utterly calm. It seems that even using the balance breaker wouldn't be enough to break this barrier for a while. That won't serve my purpose. Guess I'll just show off my new power a bit. With that, Riku's golden eyes flashed, and a faint smile played at his lips. Ha! Riku let out a deep roar, clenching his fists as all his lean muscles swelled. A wild aura erupted from his body, golden flames faintly flickering around him. All the magical attacks approaching Riku were instantly reduced to nothing, shaken apart by his aura. What is that? Surge cried out in shock, staring at Riku. Does he really have more power hidden away? Ajika's heart sank. Seraphol and the other Ma'o who'd fought Riku before were all thrown into turmoil, a powerful sense of dread spreading within them. Huh, looks like Master has gone through another transformation. Drumroll's eyes sparkled with infatuation. As expected of Master, he's gotten even stronger. Riku's power is rising rapidly, 5 times, 10 times, no, even more. Data flashed across Shui's eyes as she made her calculations, looking visibly shaken. Riku's voice grew even louder, thunderous. The golden flames around him grew even bigger, and his white hair stood on end, turning a brilliant gold, as did his eyebrows. Riku's golden irises turned emerald green. At that moment, Riku's aura surged to its peak. The violent surge of energy made the entire dimensional space unstable, with cracks spreading everywhere. Even the barrier that Surge and the other devils maintained was rippling and riddled with fractures, as if about to collapse. But Surge and the others no longer cared about the cracks in the barrier or about stabilizing it. They were simply frozen, staring at Riku, completely overwhelmed by his inhuman presence, unable to summon the will to resist. Surge and Ajika, the two super devil, were somewhat better off. Even Seraphol was trembling instinctively, looking at Riku in terror. His aura was simply too terrifying. So much so that they couldn't even think of resisting. Those weaker elders were ashen-faced, nearly collapsing on the spot. If Riku's previous power surpassed the two heavenly dragons by a great margin, and after using the balance breaker, was already approaching the level of the Abyss, then, Riku's current state had already left Abyss far, far behind. You must understand, even beings like the Abyss and the Great Red, even when unleashing their full power, are capable of destroying the world. Let alone Riku, right now. How could we possibly defeat a monster like that? One of the underworld nobles stammered, lips trembling in terror. That seemed to flip a switch. Every single underworld powerhouse instantly lost the will to fight. Even Xerxes and Ajika could only give a bitter smile. They'd expected Riku to be hiding his strength, but never imagined it would be to such an extent. This level was something they simply could not contend with. Where the hell did this guy even come from? Seraphol muttered in utter resignation, at her wit's end. She'd thought she could reclaim her pride, but it turned out that just his unleashed aura made it impossible for them to even play the game. So this is Master's true power? This is the first time I've seen it. Amazing. Jibril once again stared at Riku, completely love-struck. His power increased by 100 times. Shui murmured to herself, her face full of shock. Oh? So this is Super Saiyan, huh? The amplification is even higher than I expected. Riku looked at the golden aura swirling around him and mused. When Son Goku and Vegeta first became Super Saiyan 1, their power increased 50-fold. But it seemed his own boost far exceeded 50 times. As expected of a Saiyan god bloodline, not only did transforming into a Super Saiyan become as easy as eating or drinking, but the transformation itself was much more powerful than a normal Super Saiyan. Riku's lips curled into a smile as he figured this out. He really lived up to the name of God. Ha! With a great shout, Riku's golden aura soared, his presence piercing the heavens, shaking the entire dimensional space. A violent shockwave swept outward. Under this torrent of leaking energy, the powerful barrier maintained by Xerxes and the others, the pride of Ajika's craft, shattered instantly. All the devils were blasted away, vomiting blood. The entire dimensional space trembled violently, the fabric of reality collapsing in on itself, looking extremely unstable and on the verge of imploding. That kind of result would mean being exiled to the dimensional gap. Wait, we surrender. We surrender. Please, stop. Ajika Beelzebub shouted frantically. Any further, and the entire leadership of the underworld would be wiped out. Yes, we surrender, please stop. We beg you. The rest of the high-ranking underworld leaders, who now had no courage left and only wanted to keep their lives, echoed Ajika's plea in panic and fear. Even the most stubborn elders and nobles could not muster even a trace of bravery in the face of Riku. The difference in power was simply too vast. Riku's strength was absolute. Forget about them, even if you put the whole world together, they might not be able to beat him. To give up so quickly, how dull, Riku muttered with a shrug, withdrawing his aura and returning to his usual state. However, the space itself was already collapsing. Riku's outburst had pushed it far beyond its limits. In an instant, cracks spread through the air like a mirror, and then everything shattered. Ajika hurriedly cast a spell to transfer everyone out. As soon as they returned to the tower, all the high-ranking devils collapsed to the ground like defeated roosters, faces pale, sighing with relief and zero dignity. Master, that power just now was incredible. What was it? Jibril couldn't help her curiosity any longer. Riku, your power just now increased 100-fold, Shui added in awe. 100 times, huh? Hearing the specific number, Riku nodded in admiration. That was Super Saiyan mode, Riku explained simply. It was difficult to explain more, so he didn't bother. Shui and Jibril glanced at each other, nodded as if they understood, and didn't press further. I'm going to rule the underworld. Any objections? Riku's gaze swept over Xerxes, Seraphol, and the other underworld leaders, his words filled with an irresistible authority. None. Xerxes and Ajika were the first to answer with wry smiles, completely resigned. We accept our defeat. I don't either, said Seraphol, her feelings complicated. Nor do I, added Falbium, shaking his head. The peerage members of the four great Ma'au also shook their heads, following their master's lead. It is our honor for you to rule the underworld, sir. Seeing the four Ma'au respond so readily, the remaining elders were even more terrified and hurried to bow. Their respect couldn't be greater, any prior hostility was completely gone. Are you kidding? With strength like his, he could destroy the underworld in an instant. Who would dare resist? Seeing this, Riku nodded slightly. Power is the only real law. That much was clear and simple. From this day forward, all the leaders of the underworld would live in his shadow. Whatever orders he gave, these devils would never dare say a word in protest. Jibril and Shui, meanwhile, remained utterly calm. To them, this was only natural. You can all keep your current positions, I won't meddle in daily affairs. But my orders are absolute. You must obey. Riku looked over the gathered underworld leaders and spoke indifferently. We understand. Xerxes and the others, though helpless, also felt some relief. Clearly, Riku didn't want to interfere with the underworld's internal affairs too much. No need to worry about widespread purges or changes. Well, that's that. Seraphol, show me around Lucifer. Riku said with a smile. Alright. Sarafal's mouth twitched as she reluctantly came to Riku's side. Sirsts, Greyfire, and the others all looked away in pity. Poor Sarafal, she was really marked now. Noticing that Sirsts was once again selling out his teammate, Sarafal ground her teeth in frustration. At this moment, Sarafal deeply regretted ever going to face Riku alone. If not for that, she wouldn't have fallen from a lofty Ma'au to a Ma'au's personal maid, subjected to daily discipline. Finally, Riku, Shui, Jibril, and Sarafal were the first to leave the Black Tower. The remaining Sirsts, Adika, and the other underworld leaders exchanged silent glances, then shook their heads in worry. Once more, a strict gag order was issued. No one was allowed to talk about what had happened today. Severe punishment would befall anyone who did. Since Riku wanted to rule from the shadows, they would do their best to keep it that way. Besides, that was exactly the result they wanted. After all, if this incident ever got out, the entire underworld would riot. Its dignity would be utterly lost. Chapter 66. After taking a stroll through the ancient devil metropolis of Luciferd, the city at Ma'au Ridge, and enjoying plenty of local cuisine, Riku set off in search of the diamond treasure chest. Although the diamond chest was hidden deep in the underworld secret regions, with Sarafal, a Ma'au, by his side, there was no need to break in by force. So, he easily obtained the diamond chest. Riku, well practiced by now, placed his hand on the diamond chest and opened it. Ding! Congratulations, Master, for opening a diamond-grade treasure chest. You have obtained God's knowledge. God's knowledge contains all the knowledge of the God of the Bible, including the methods of creating the system, the crafting of sacred gears. Everything is contained within. The knowledge of the God of the Bible? Riku's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. How to put it, while the God of the Bible in this world might not have been the strongest in pure combat, when it came to sorcery, even Ajika Beelzebub couldn't compare. After all, he created the system, gathered faith, spread it across the world, and enabled exorcists and other humans to wield supernatural power. He also created the sacred gears, capable of evolving through belief, and even Longinus, which makes all gods and demons wary. In the end, he used thousands of high-tier sorcery arrays to seal an existence like Trixa. Though there was some trickery involved, no one could deny his strength. So, the God of the Bible's greatest strength wasn't just raw power, but his knowledge. Interesting. Looks like I've found a new source of entertainment, Riku murmured. Master, did you find something fun again? Jibril asked, her face full of curiosity. Shui also looked over. Only Sarafal was left confused. Had Riku really found something in here? Although this was a secret realm, as far as she knew, there weren't any treasures inside. Something like that. Anyway, let's leave. Riku said with a chuckle. Hearing this, Sarafal immediately sprang into action, afraid Riku might just blow the place up if they lingered. After leaving, Riku promptly dismissed Sarafal. This left Sarafal so overjoyed that she fled in an instant, making Riku wonder if he had been too lenient with her. But that was just a passing thought. Finally, Philip Phoenix arrived, respectfully escorting Riku back to the family residence. Lord Riku, you're finally back. Did you win your match? Ravel asked excitedly, running over. The way she asked clearly showed whose side she was on. Philip could only smile wryly. This girl was totally on Riku's side now. Of course I won, Riku said, ruffling Ravel's head lightly, his tone casual. As expected of Lord Riku. Even the Ma'au aren't your match. Instantly, Ravel looked up at him with adoring eyes. Riku simply smiled. Oh, Shui, I made some new pastries, would you like to try them? Ravel asked, pulling at Shui's hand eagerly. Shui hesitated, then nodded. After spending a week together, Ravel had become a true friend. Especially after discovering how quickly Shui could learn anything, Ravel was even more enthusiastic about discussing pastries and tea ceremonies with her. As for Jibril, she had already run off to the Phoenix family's library. These days, aside from fighting, Jibril was absolutely obsessed with the knowledge of different worlds. What a lively place. But I suppose it's time to move on, Riku thought, shaking his head as he watched Shui and Ravel's backs. Life here was pleasant, but he still had other matters to attend to, he couldn't stay forever. The next day, Riku said his goodbyes to Ravel. Ravel looked at him with longing, clearly wanting to follow. But Riku refused, her power had grown too quickly. She needed to stay in the underworld and learn to control her new strength. Besides, his next destination was not somewhere a devil like Ravel would be comfortable. In the end, Ravel only agreed to stay home after making Riku promise to remember what he'd promised her. Riku could only pat her head, half amused, half helpless. Soon after, Riku used the Phoenix family's dedicated teleportation circle to leave the underworld, arriving for the first time in the human world and heading straight toward his next target. He wasn't all that interested in the human world, maybe just a little curious about foreign countries. Shui and Drumroll, on the other hand, were both quite intrigued. After all, it was a land full of all kinds of humans and completely different cultures from the underworld. Vatican City, the Holy Church, a sacred place for many humans. And to those in the supernatural world, the church's significance was obvious. It was the base of heaven's faith network, and a place feared by devils and fallen angels alike. But at this moment, the headquarters of the Holy Church was about to receive 3 unexpected guests. Outside, crowds of ordinary people prayed as usual. But the truly important areas were off limits, guarded in the shadows by church members of considerable strength. Halt. This is sacred ground. Outsiders are not permitted beyond this point. Barked 2 guards at the entrance, seeing Riku and his companions approach with clear intent. But Riku completely ignored the warning. In the blink of an eye, all 3 vanished. Space itself rippled, and they appeared within the church's inner sanctum. We've been infiltrated? While the 2 guards outside looked on in confusion, the hidden experts inside the church instantly noticed the intrusion. Alarms blared. Ordinary people were quickly evacuated, and complex magical arrays were activated inside, holy power spreading to envelop the entire interior. Now, not even a fly could escape from the church. So this is another kind of power. But compared to demonic energy, this one feels much gentler, Drumroll said, marveling at the thick atmosphere of power, her eyes full of curiosity. Yes, I suppose this is the holy power Riku mentioned, Shui analyzed. Yeah, something like that. Riku shrugged, glancing at the church members who had surrounded them. Still, the people here don't seem as gentle as their power. In fact, they seem pretty aggressive. It does seem that way, Shui and Drumroll replied, glancing around at the church members whose hostility was plain to see. They looked like they might attack at any moment. Who are you people, daring to trespass on the church's sacred grounds? At that moment, a middle-aged priest stepped out, his gaze sharp as he stared at Riku. Who we are isn't important. I only have one reason for coming here. I want your Pope to meet me, Riku said calmly, his hands in his pockets. You want the Pope to meet you? How arrogant. At these words, all the clergy froze, then burst out in rage. The Pope was the highest authority of the church and the representative of heaven in the human world. To them, Riku's words were a blatant insult. Insolent, suspicious intruders seize them first. The bishop said coldly. In an instant, all the clergy prepared to act. What a hassle. Shui, Riku said, patting Shui on the head with composure. Leave it to me. Shui nodded lightly. The mechanical headpiece above her head projected a geometric halo, which enveloped the entire church. Suddenly, all the clergy felt an intense pressure, completely unable to move. This is gravity magic? The bishop's face turned red as he struggled to speak. That's right, just gravity magic, Shui replied nonchalantly. Don't worry, I've already analyzed everyone's data. I've adjusted the gravity on each person according to their strength. You won't die, but it will be a bit uncomfortable. What? The bishop's pupils contracted in shock. Could she analyze everyone's limits? That was impossible. And to subdue so many powerful people at once, this girl was at least at the level of a 10-winged archangel. Shui, have you pinpointed the Pope's location yet? Riku asked, rewarding Shui with another pat. The Pope might not be the strongest, but he would certainly have the most sacred aura. Not because his heart was especially pure, but because he carried the papal staff and crown, sacred artifacts imbued with holy power. Over there. Shui pointed calmly in a certain direction. All right, let's go. Riku smiled and, under the shocked and resentful stares of the immobilized clergy, he led Shui and Drumroll away. Along the way, every immobilized priest and nun could only stare in shock and hostility as the trio passed, but Riku's group paid them no mind at all. Before long, they arrived at a hall thick with holy power, utterly sacred. Before a giant statue of God, an elderly man with snow-white hair and beard knelt in prayer. Unknown visitors, what business do you have with me? If I can help, I will do my best. The Pope stood, his eyes calm as he looked at Riku, Shui, and Drumroll. Since Riku showed neither malice nor intention to harm anyone, the Pope bore them no enmity. Even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be a match. Anyone who could subdue the entire church so easily was no ordinary person. Huh? He can still move, Shui. Did you go easy on him? Drumroll asked in surprise, glancing at the Pope. No. Shui shook her head, her gaze fixed on the staff in the Pope's hand, which was glowing with a white light. That thing protected him. You're a smart man, Riku said approvingly to the Pope. Thanks to all the stories he'd read, he'd always imagined popes as stubborn and pedantic, but it seemed that wasn't the case here. My purpose in seeking you is simple. I want to go to heaven. As the Pope, you should be able to arrange that, right? Riku said casually. To heaven. The Pope's clouded eyes flickered, and he fell into thought. After a moment, he glanced at Drumroll, then slowly nodded. It can be done. Riku nodded, satisfied. Talking to smart people really did save a lot of trouble. Are you planning to go right now? The Pope followed up. Before that, there's something I need to take care of. Riku shook his head, walking up to the statue. With a puzzled look from the old man, Riku reached under the statue and placed his hand on a platinum treasure chest. In a burst of multicolored light, the chest opened, revealing a ball of light. Ding! Congratulations, Master, for opening a platinum chest. You have obtained seal card, a one-time use card. When used, it can seal any target, ignoring all rules, so long as the enemy is not more than twice as strong as the user. A one-time use item, huh? Not bad, Riku murmured. This seal card had no stated upper limit. For example, if he used it in his normal state, he could seal someone up to twice as strong as himself. But if he went into Super Saiyan mode, he could seal someone twice as strong as that. Too bad it could only be used once. If it were a skill, it would be ridiculously overpowered. Pope, would you please open the path to heaven? Riku turned around and asked the puzzled old man. I understand. The Pope nodded and, raising his staff, channeled divine power to connect to heaven. A pillar of holy light shot down from the sky, forming a white beam that stretched into the heavens. Just step into the light, the Pope said solemnly. Riku didn't worry about any schemes, he simply led Shui and Drumroll into the light. As the beam contracted, it whisked the three of them away toward an unknown destination. Only after Riku's group vanished did the Pope finally let out a sigh of relief as the pressure disappeared. Soon, the entire church returned to normal. Just where did those terrifying people come from? The Pope muttered. To think they could make me feel so helpless. But at least, he didn't seem to have any evil intent, his aura was quite pure. But that girl. The Pope thought of Drumroll, frowning. She resembles an angel, yet her presence is filled with killing intent. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. I just hope nothing goes wrong in heaven, the Pope murmured, then left to calm the turmoil that had erupted in the church. Heaven. In a garden full of birdsong and blooming flowers, holy energy permeated everything. Divine beasts sang, Pegasus galloped, and the scene was idyllic and beautiful. From time to time, handsome and beautiful angels could be seen playing. For believers and angels, this was truly paradise, it calmed the heart and even increased their power. But for devils and fallen angels, it was poisonous. Ordinary devils would be purified just by being here, even without the angels raising a hand. Even Mao, who entered this place, would have their power halved and would only be able to use their innate abilities. After all, the air was filled with Holy Spirit power, and not a trace of demonic energy could be found. Of course, the same applied to angels visiting the underworld, they were fundamentally opposed forces. Chapter 67 When Riku and his group appeared, they were immediately noticed by a female six-winged angel who had came to receive them. She looked at Riku with a puzzled expression. At first, she thought it might be a bishop or the Pope from the Holy Church, but it turned out to be three strangers who didn't look like priests at all. So these are angels? While they're a bit like my own race, there are many differences too, Drumroll said with curiosity as she gazed at the angel's wings. Hearing this, the six-winged angel looked at Drumroll with confusion, also noticing the wings at Drumroll's waist, which were different from those of angels. And who might you be? The six-winged angel asked, still uncertain. We're here to see Michael, Riku said calmly. The six-winged angel frowned slightly at Riku's lack of honorifics. Lord Michael is very busy, it's not so easy to see him just because you ask. Still, as angels tend to have good temperaments, she didn't press the matter but shook her head and said, if you need anything, you can talk to me. Jessica, leave this to me. Go help me look after the garden, a gentle, heart-cleansing voice suddenly sounded, drawing Riku's gaze. From a distance, a figure slowly flew over. With an exquisite face, golden, pure eyes set in perfect features, and a holy aura paired with an alluring, curvaceous body, this angel possessed a charm that could drive the whole world mad. Add to that the 12 pure white wings and the golden halo above her head, and her identity was obvious, she was one of the four great angels, Gabriel herself. Yes, Lady Gabriel, the six-winged angel replied respectfully and left with a bow. Hello there, visitors from the human world, Gabriel greeted Riku with a soft smile. Is there anything I can help you with? Let's have a fight. Before Riku could say anything, Drumroll blurted out with excitement. Eh? Even with her gentle personality, Gabriel's eyes widened in surprise, letting out a cute yelp. Shut up, Drumroll, Riku said, raising an eyebrow and pressing down on Drumroll's head. Only after taking a moment to admire Gabriel's looks and figure did he calmly say, "I've come to heaven for only one reason, to take the place of your deceased god and govern heaven." If it were any other archangel who heard those words, they'd probably attack on the spot, filled with murderous intent. After all, what Riku just said was shocking. The death of the biblical god was a tightly kept secret among the three factions. If other pantheons learned of it, they might try to invade. And Riku's declaration of ruling heaven was the ultimate taboo for angels. That might be a little difficult. Could you maybe ask for something else? Yet Gabriel, with her over-the-top kindness, just gave a troubled look and tried to negotiate. Even Shui found herself looking strangely at Gabriel. Riku's words alone would have gotten them labeled as dangerous invaders. Yet this angel wasn't even angry. Gabriel, too, was momentarily at a loss. "Never mind, let me put it another way. I can repair a system in place of God," Riku said, shaking his head casually. He was pretty familiar with Gabriel's personality, so he wasn't surprised. Repair a system. This time, Gabriel finally looked serious. Ever since the three factions' great war and the death of the biblical god, the system had been unstable. If it weren't for the four angels doing their best to keep it running, it probably would have collapsed long ago. If that happened, it would be disastrous. Humans would lose all the power managed by the church, and exorcists would lose their special abilities entirely. "Please come with me," Gabriel said with a now serious expression, not doubting Riku's words at all. Her 12 wings flared as she flew into the distance. Riku and the other two calmly followed alongside. As they flew, Riku and Gabriel made small talk. After a while, they stopped in front of a great temple. Gabriel used a unique spell to open a complex barrier, then turned to Riku and said, "Riku, come in." Riku entered with composure. As soon as Riku stepped inside, the doors shut tight. The moment he entered, Riku saw a massive circular structure in the center of the hall. To be precise, it was something constructed from countless special spells woven together in an incredibly complex manner. Its surface shimmered with beautiful points of light, without a physical form, vaguely connecting to the world itself. Innumerable threads of faith were being converted into pure Holy Spirit energy to keep it running. At the southeast, south, and west, 3 angels were busy fine-tuning it. The most eye-catching was the one in the east, with 12 golden wings on his back. In all of heaven, only one person had such unique wings, the leader of the angels, Michael, who ruled heaven in place of God. "Gabriel, is this the human who came to heaven? And why have you brought them here?" One of the angels, Uriel, asked with a stern tone. While the Pope was heaven's representative in the mortal world, there was no way a person brought by the Pope should be allowed in here. The secrets of heaven absolutely couldn't be exposed to outsiders. "His name is Riku Daola. These two are Shui and Gabriel," Gabriel replied with a gentle smile. "Riku says he's here to repair the system." At this, both Uriel and Raphael twitched at the corners of their mouths. After so many years together, they already knew Gabriel could be a bit airheaded, but this was too much. Just believing whatever someone told her? If she went to the human world, she'd get sold and still help her kidnappers count their money. Michael, however, didn't react. Instead, he seriously scrutinized Riku, able to sense the incredible power within him. Both Shui and Gabriel were also extremely powerful. As for the reactions of the angels, Riku paid them no mind. He focused on the system, feeling a faint response from the star grail within him. He could vaguely sense traces of sovereign authority swirling around it. "Looks like I made the right move," Riku said under his breath, a smirk on his lips. The system was something that affected the whole world, so it was very likely to contain sovereign authority. Riku had already considered this possibility, and now, it was confirmed. Fixing his gaze on the system, Riku immediately flickered to the front of it and reached out his hand. "Stop." At this, Uriel and Raphael's expressions changed, and they erupted with powerful energy, holy light swirling around them as they tried to stop Riku's actions. Even Michael's expression shifted slightly. Quiet. But before the angels could truly act, a wave of divine aura suddenly burst from Riku. Under the influence of this aura, even powerhouses like Uriel, Raphael, and Michael were rendered completely immobile. "This is the aura and sorcery of Father, how is that possible?" Uriel stared at Riku in utter shock, his mind in turmoil. God is unique, and the sorcery created by God is equally unique, even angels like themselves cannot use it. Angels were created by God, so God's command is absolute for them. Now that Riku possesses the knowledge of the biblical God, controlling them is simply effortless. At this moment, even Michael and Gabriel looked at Riku in astonishment, faces full of shock and confusion. By now, Riku's hand was already resting on the system. Influenced by him, faint ripples spread across its surface. Immediately after, Riku's energy completely transformed into holy power as his hands began to manipulate the system. In the stunned gaze of Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, the system, which had been operating with great difficulty, suddenly began to function smoothly. Gaps and bugs were rapidly patched. In just a short while, the system that had required 4 angels to barely maintain was now running perfectly, not a single hitch in its operation. At that very moment, a mysterious power swept across the entire world. All exorcists, shrine maidens, priests, and so on, were all astonished to discover their powers had suddenly grown, and their spiritual and holy energies now flowed without any obstruction. At the same time, the main gods and top beings of every pantheon in the world also sensed the anomaly and revealed thoughtful expressions. The system. It's fixed. Michael stared blankly at the system, murmuring in disbelief. How is this possible? Only Father should be able to. Uriel and Raphael both stammered, unable to finish their sentences. Could Riku actually be the reincarnation of our father? Gabriel couldn't help but voice her thoughts. This stunned Michael, Uriel, and Raphael. Humphrey, Riku is not the reincarnation of your biblical god, Shui said unhappily. Master is master. Your god can't compare. Gabriel declared proudly. Though this sounded arrogant, none of the 4 angels minded it. Instead, they all stared intently at Riku. Even under their burning stares, Riku remained undisturbed, calmly calling upon the Star Grail to absorb the sovereignty power held within the system, causing the Star Grail to grow stronger. From this moment on, only as long as he lived would the system operate properly. If he died, the system would instantly collapse, regardless of whether the 4 angels continued maintaining it. I'm not the reincarnation of your god. Strictly speaking, I possess the knowledge of the biblical God. Of course, right now, you could say I am your God. Because without me, the system cannot operate, Riku said calmly to Michael. That does seem to be the case. Michael paused, then smiled, half delighted, half resigned. He was glad the system could be restored, but couldn't help but be frustrated at how decisively Riku acted. They didn't even have a chance to respond. Uriel and Raphael also looked at Riku with mixed feelings. Riku hadn't said a single unnecessary word, nor cared whether they agreed or not. He simply did what he wanted. A new god, huh? That might not be so bad. Gabriel, after a moment of internal struggle, finally spoke up. I thought you'd all be furious, trying to fight me, or at least argue to the end, Riku commented as he dispelled the sorcery, looking at them with an odd expression. There's no point in that. Our creator is gone, but the system must keep running for the sake of the world, Michael sighed. Your resolve is impressive. Riku shook his head. Michael was always willing to make peace, even with devils, the angels' mortal enemies. This wasn't surprising at all. Besides, Riku's presence would bring new life to heaven. A new god, a new master. I, Michael, hereby swear my allegiance. Michael half knelt in the air, his 12 golden wings trembling as he declared solemnly. A new god, a new master. Gabriel, Raphael, hereby swears allegiance. Seeing this, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael also knelt and pledged their loyalty. Riku nodded. Sure enough, subduing angels was far easier than devils. The personalities of the 4 angels were far too gentle, and with the system as leverage, it was all too simple. Shui and Gabriel felt a bit awkward. Compared to the conquest of the underworld, heaven was simply too easy. Next, Riku extended his hand into the system's interior. This time, the 4 angels did not stop him, since there were still some parts that weren't fully repaired. However, only Riku himself knew the truth. Inside the system sat a diamond treasure chest, quietly waiting. When Riku rested his hand on the dazzling chest, a familiar unlocking sound played, and a ball of light quietly floated up, accompanied by the system's notification, ding. Congratulations, Master, for opening the diamond chest and obtaining the angelic source. Angelic source, an artifact born alongside the biblical god. It was by using an incomplete angelic source that the biblical god created the race of angels. The user can create angels through the angelic source or dissolve their essence in water to form the pool of angels, which can be used to birth ordinary angels or even turn ordinary humans into angels. This isn't of much use to me personally, but it's not bad for creating a group of gods. Riku mused. Oh well. Since I'm now the leader of heaven, I might as well do my duty. Riku shook his head. Michael, what's the current status of the pool of angels? Riku looked at Michael and asked calmly. The pool of angels has long since dried up. We can't create any new angels anymore, Michael said with a bitter smile. Uriel, Raphael, and even the somewhat airheaded Gabriel all showed worried expressions. With no way to create new angels, and angels regularly falling and becoming fallen angels, heaven's situation was actually quite dire. If that's the case, then take me to the pool of angels. I'll create a new one. Riku's golden eyes gleamed as he said words that filled the angels with joy. Chapter 68. Ever since the death of the God of the Bible, the pool of angels had dried up. Because of this, heaven's situation was the worst among the three factions. The underworld had to Beelzebub's evil pieces, which allowed humans to be reincarnated as devils. The fallen angels could replenish their numbers through angels falling from grace. But angels had no way to birth new angels, their numbers only continued to dwindle. Now, hearing that the pool of angels could be restored, Michael's joy was no less than when Riku had repaired the system. "Master, please follow me," Gabriel was the first to speak up, unable to contain herself. Riku nodded lightly upon hearing this. Soon, they arrived at a breathtaking garden in heaven. At the center of the garden was a large, holy-looking pool surrounded by statues of young angels. However, the pool, which once brimmed with sacred energy, now appeared no different from ordinary water. "Master, can you really restore the vitality of the pool of angels?" Gabriel asked anxiously, her voice full of anticipation. Michael, Uriel, and Raphael, who once ruled over heaven, also gazed nervously at Riku. "Of course," Riku replied calmly. Under the curious gazes of Shui and Jibril, Riku spread his palm. In an instant, a golden orb of light appeared in his palm. As soon as this golden orb appeared, Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, and Raphael were all stunned, staring at it as a powerful sense of awe and closeness welled up in their hearts. As Riku produced the source of angels, he sensed a reaction from deep within the pool of angels and couldn't help but smile. So that's how it is after the God of the Bible perished. The pool of angels source didn't disappear, it just went dormant. Riku then used the source of angels in his hand to awaken the incomplete source within the pool. In an instant, the entire pool began to bubble with energy. A moment later, at the center of the pool of angels, a mostly white orb faintly laced with gold floated to the surface. "What is that?" Michael asked, stunned, a powerful sense of affinity washing over him. "That is the source of angels. It's this very thing that makes the pool of angels what it is. Without it, it would just be a pool of water filled with a bit of sacred power," Riku explained as he raised his hand and the white source of angels floated over to him. When the God of the Bible died, it went dormant, so new angels could no longer be born. "I see," Michael nodded. "Now that Master has awakened it, does that mean the pool of angels is restored?" Gabriel said excitedly. "Not quite. It still needs a little something extra," Riku shrugged. As he spoke, Riku let a drop of golden liquid from the pure golden source of angels in his hand fall into the white source. Immediately, the white source began to tremble, glowing even brighter, the golden patterns deepening. Then, Riku wove a series of divine spells around the white source, wrapping it in sacred energy. Once finished, and with the expectant gazes of the four angels upon him, Riku let the white source return to the center of the pool of angels, where it merged with the water. In an instant, the pool of angels burst forth with an astonishing radiance, unique energy swirling within, life brimming everywhere. "All done," Riku said with a satisfied smile, tossing the golden source back into the system's inventory. From now on, all newly born angels would be his subordinates. And due to the influence of the source, even the old angels would be absolutely compelled to obey his orders. In other words, heaven was now entirely his to command. "Thank you for your blessing, Master." Michael immediately dropped to one knee, gratitude filling his voice. Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael quickly followed suit. "Stand up," Riku said with a slight shake of his head. "Master, could you grant me some of the golden source liquid?" Jibril suddenly spoke up, her tone uncharacteristically serious. Riku was surprised this was the first time Jibril had ever asked him for anything. He noted Jibril's rare, earnest expression, so different from her usual mischievous self. "Will this help you?" Riku took out the source of angels once more, contemplating. "Yes," Jibril nodded sincerely. "But I don't need all of it, that would make me explode. Just a few drops of the golden liquid is enough." "Riku, I want some too," Shui couldn't help but add. "Got it," Riku nodded. It seemed this source of angels was even more valuable than he'd thought. Riku created 10 drops of the golden source liquid and divided them between Jibril and Shui. As soon as they began to absorb it, Jibril was enveloped by a golden halo and floated quietly in the air. Shui's mechanical core flashed with light as she absorbed the power, though it made far less commotion than Jibril's. "Evolution, huh?" Riku smiled as he looked at Jibril. "Once she's finished absorbing it, she should reach the transcendent tier. Gabriel, take care of Jibril. Don't let any angels near her. Michael, Uriel, Raphael, you three as well," Riku commanded, his tone brooking no argument. "We understand," the four angels said earnestly, nodding. Michael then gathered all the angels and had them swear fealty to Riku. At first, the announcement caused an uproar. But with a thought, Riku used the bond created by the source of angels to instantly silence them. This connection also allowed the angels to understand what had happened, and soon they all fell silent. After that, Michael and the other angels explained that Riku had restored the system and the pool of angels. With that, almost all of heaven's angels swore allegiance. With heaven's business wrapped up, Riku didn't linger. He took Shui and returned to the human world. As for Jibril, by Riku's estimation, she wouldn't wake up for a while. But with her teleport ability, once she did awaken, she could catch up on her own. Riku wasn't worried. Upon arriving in the human world, Riku didn't dawdle. He headed straight for Kwa Town. Kwa Town, although this small Japanese town is unremarkable to the rest of the world, it is actually the center of this world. Why, you ask? Naturally, it's because this is where the story begins, and most of the plot unfolds in this seemingly ordinary town. All kinds of main and supporting characters either already live here or will appear here in the future. If Kwa Town is the center, then Kwa Academy is the center of the center. On the surface, it's a prestigious girls' school that only recently started admitting boys, but in reality, none of its students are ordinary. Devils, sacred gear users, the descendants of exorcist families, characters you'd only expect to see in fantasy novels, can all be found at this school. What's more, even the school itself is run by the offspring of two pure-blood devil noble families from the underworld. At this moment, Riku brought Shui across the sea to Kwa Academy. Wow, look at that girl, she's so cute. NPC 1 said. I wish I could hug her in my arms. NPC 2 said, but that white-haired boy is really handsome, too. I think he's even more attractive than Kiba-senpai. NPC 3 said. Yeah, I wonder what he's doing at our school. I'd love to get his contact information. NPC 4 said as Riku and Shui walked through the academy, many girls' eyes lit up as they stole glances at them, whispering among themselves. As for the boys, they looked at Riku with envy, jealousy, and even hatred, especially when they saw him holding Shui's hand, their eyes practically burning with resentment. Riku, is this the school you mentioned as the most important place in this world? Shui asked curiously, looking around. Yeah. Do you want to try attending classes here? It might be a brand new experience for you, Riku said with a gentle smile. Attend classes? Would you be here too, Riku? Shui pondered for a moment and asked. Me? No, not as a student. I'll be working as a teacher, Riku said, lips curling in amusement. I see. Shui nodded. At this moment, a handsome blonde boy in the Kwa Academy uniform noticed Riku and Shui approaching. Instinctively, he stopped in his tracks, pupils contracting as he felt an overwhelming pressure wash over him. Even though they were just passing by, he felt a sense of fear. Two extraordinary people had arrived at the academy, he'd better report this to the president. Kiba Yodo's expression changed, and he quickly turned around and left. Kiba Yodo. As expected of an important supporting character. He can actually sense something's off, Riku commented, shaking his head slightly. Shui glanced at Kiba Yodo. Seeing that Riku had no intention of doing anything, she remained silent as well. Soon, Riku and Shui arrived at the student council president's office. At this school, the chairman isn't the one in charge. The real authority is Suna Saitri, the student council president, who is also the next head of the pure-blood devil Saitri family from the underworld. It's worth mentioning that Suna Saitri is the younger sister of Seraphol, the Ma'o, who had been disciplined quite a few times by Riku. As Riku was about to knock on the student council office door, it opened on its own. Standing in front of him was a girl slightly shorter than Riku. The girl had shoulder-length black hair and wore glasses. Her delicate features exuded intelligence, and she radiated a cold, serious aura. Her crimson eyes were full of spirit. The moment the girl looked at Riku, her gaze fluctuated sharply, but she quickly spoke calmly, "Come in." Riku walked in calmly. The elegant door closed once again, and Riku and Shui sat leisurely on the sofa. The girl sat across from Riku, while another beautiful girl with long, straight black hair stood behind her, also looking refined, but with the bearing of an attendant. I am Suna Saitri, student council president of Kwa Academy, the girl said, adjusting her glasses and looking straight at Riku. This is the vice president, Tsubaki Shinra. Kwa Academy does not permit outsiders to enter when the school is not open to the public. May I ask, what brings you two to Kwa Academy? Suna asked, composed and dignified. Looks like you haven't been informed yet, Riku shrugged casually. It was clear the underworld hadn't told the young devils like Suna or even Ryaz about the recent major events. Riku could even guess that Ryaz herself probably had no idea. Then again, that made sense, telling these young devils would only add to their worries without helping anything. Informed about what? Suna frowned, a look of puzzlement on her face. My reason for coming here is simple. My name is Riku, and I'm here to apply for the position of PE teacher. This is Shui, who will be transferring into the first-year class, Riku replied in a relaxed tone. Sona stared at Riku and Shui in silence. People with such extraordinary power saying something so mundane. She couldn't imagine it. But she couldn't think of any other reason why people of this level would take an interest in this school. Understood. I'll take care of your employment and transfer. You'll be able to start work and school tomorrow, Sona said at last, shaking her head slightly. Sona-chan, I'll leave it to you then, Riku said nonchalantly, as if he'd expected her answer. Sona-chan. Sona's eyelid twitched slightly. When did I get on such familiar terms with you? Tsubaki Shinra also looked speechless at Riku's excessive casualness. Flirting with the president as soon as you walk in, he really is something else. Well, we won't trouble you any longer, Riku said, standing up and taking Shui's hand. Oh, by the way, if you can't find any information about me, you can ask your older sister. I'm sure she'll tell you, Riku added with a smile as he reached the door. Your sister's quite something. Sona's eyes narrowed at his words. He knows her real identity. And what did he mean by that last line? Though she couldn't figure out what Riku's final words meant, Sona instinctively felt it wasn't anything good. As Sona was lost in thought, Riku and Shui had already left, closing the door behind them. President. After Riku left, Tsubaki Shinra asked hesitantly. I'm fine, Sona waved her hand, taking a deep breath. Looks like things won't be quiet around here for much longer. He said to ask my sister. Does he know her? But with my sister's personality, there's no way. Sona frowned in thought, full of confusion. Chapter 69. After leaving Kua Academy, Riku and Shui strolled through the streets of Kua Town, enjoying street snacks and a carefree afternoon. For Riku, even though devouring the world's sovereignty was important, he wasn't going to work himself to the bone for it. What's the point if you don't enjoy life along the way? Enjoying life comes first, chasing goals comes second. Otherwise, if he exhausted himself to death, what meaning would any of it have? He might as well just live peacefully in disport. Hey, Shui, do you want to check out the arcade? Riku suddenly spotted a game center along the street, nostalgia flickering in his eyes as he suggested it to Shui. Arcade? Shui glanced inside at the various machines and the people excitedly mashing buttons, her eyes lighting up. I want to try. In that case, let's go play for a bit. Riku smiled, taking Shui's hand and leading her inside. Soon, everyone in the arcade was left in shock as Riku and Shui shattered all the high scores on every game. While Riku and Shui were playing, Sona Saitri, pondering for a moment, couldn't help but contact her older sister, Serafal. She simply couldn't find any information about Riku whatsoever. Da-da. My adorable little sister Sona-chan, are you missing your Nei-chan? Honestly, Sona-chan, you're all grown up now and still such a little sweetheart. On the other end, in the underworld, Serafal replied playfully, clearly in a good mood. Hearing this, Sona's expression stiffened, tempted to hang up the magic communication immediately. Her older sister was great in every way, strong, high status, beautiful, but her personality was a bit much. She loved teasing Sona and doted on her to an extreme, going well beyond mere sibling affection. Once, after Sona suffered a minor grievance in some small country, Serafal rushed over and froze the entire nation in ice, nearly causing an international incident. Thankfully, she reined herself in and reversed it. In the end. So, as much as Sona loved her, she also tried to avoid her whenever possible. Big sister, can you not? I have something to ask you, Sona said with a sigh, her tone turning serious. What is it, Sona-chan? If I know, I'll tell you everything, Serafal replied cheerfully, swinging her white legs while lying in her room. Do you know who Riku and Shui are? Sona asked after a brief hesitation, getting straight to the point. At the mention of those two names, Serafal's face froze, her expression rapidly shifting between pale and flushed. Remembering the nightmare from a few days ago, she suddenly felt hot and trembled a little. Sister, what's wrong? Sona immediately noticed Serafal's odd reaction and asked, worried. Were these two really so terrifying that even her fearless sister fell silent? Sona, how do you know those names? Tell me everything in detail, Serafal said after a deep breath, her tone unusually serious. Serafal's rare serious tone caught Sona off guard, leaving her momentarily dazed. No, not just serious. There was a tremor in her voice that was fear. Her sister was afraid of that man. Being perceptive, Sona instantly picked up on the strange undertone, her eyes narrowing. After collecting herself, Sona calmly told Serafal everything she knew about Riku and Shui. By now, she realized their backgrounds were likely even more terrifying than she had imagined. Sona, listen carefully. Whatever he asks you to do your best to complete it. Whatever you do, never offend him. And make sure to tell Ryaz about this as well, Seraphol instructed in an uncharacteristically strict tone, finally relaxing a little when she learned Riku's intentions were simple. She did not want her beloved little sister to get caught up and disciplined the way she had. Although Riku treated Ravel and Shui very well and only ever disciplined her, you could never be sure? I understand. Sona replied after a moment's silence, her eyes flashing. Alright, sis, I have things to do. We'll talk later. With that, Sona ended the magical call. Sona-chan, you'd better be safe. If anything happens to you, I'll find him, Seraphol muttered, conflicted, before burying her face in her pillow, unable to finish her thought. Was that man the nemesis of the Saitree sisters? In the end, I still have no idea what his background is. Judging by my sister's reaction, she definitely knows but would never tell me. Sona massaged her forehead, exasperated. President, there's no need to overthink it. At the very least, Riku and Shui don't seem to have any malicious intent right now, Tsubaki couldn't help but say. Yeah. Sona nodded slightly. Sona, are you there? There's something I want to discuss with you. Just then, a voice called from outside the door, making Sona's eyes flicker. Ryaz? So she's noticed Riku and Shui's presence too, Sona murmured. Ryaz, the door isn't locked. Come in. I was just about to discuss something with you. Sona called out. As dusk fell, school at Kwa Academy had long ended, but Riku and Shui were still at the arcade, engrossed in their fierce gaming competition. In the end, it was a draw. Even with all of Riku's experience, Shui's ex machina instincts were just too much. Senpai, I want to challenge you, came a calm voice just as Riku and Shui were about to leave, prompting Riku to turn around. There, a petite girl stood in her Kwa Academy uniform, a beautiful girl with silver hair and golden eyes, not unlike Riku himself. But what surprised Riku wasn't her cuteness, but her identity. Konkatuju, huh? I didn't expect to meet you here. Or maybe it's fate after all, Riku smiled. Konko had a few hobbies, she loved good food and loved playing games. If she had any free time, she'd hunt for great eats around town and then hit the arcade. Senpai? Konko stared directly at Riku, who bore so many similarities to her, and spoke up again. You want to play this with me? Riku said with a slight smile. Konko nodded, a hint of stubbornness in her tone. Most of the top scores here are mine, so getting beaten. It bothers me a little. That made Riku smile wryly. I'm going to try out some other games. You two play as much as you like, but no holding back, Shui said, glancing at Konko and then at Riku, her tone uncharacteristically serious. Judging by Riku's micro-expressions and heart rate, Shui could tell he felt something unusual toward this girl. Since that was the case, she didn't mind creating an opportunity for the two of them. Seeing Shui being so cooperative, Riku patted her head with a smile. Shui then took what coins were left and went to play other games. Konko sat down next to Riku. My name is Konkatuju. What about you, senpai? Konko asked in her usual monotone. A true deadpan girl. Riku Dola, Riku replied calmly. I'll remember that, Riku-senpai. Konko nodded, immediately feeding coins into the machine and starting the game. The two of them began playing a game that was similar to King of Fighters 97. As expected, Riku easily defeated Konko. Though Konko's skills were enough to dominate this arcade, Riku was someone who could go toe-to-toe with Shui, so beating Konko was no trouble at all. By the time Konko ran out of coins, she still hadn't managed a single win. Even her normally unreadable face showed clear frustration. Wait, I'm going to get more coins, Konko said, unwilling to accept defeat. Let's call it a night. It's getting late, and we should be heading back, Riku said as he stood up. We can play again next time. Contact info. Upon hearing that, Konko fell silent for a moment before asking. Sorry, I don't have a phone right now. But don't worry, we'll see each other again soon. Riku waved his hand in a carefree way. With that, he took Shui's hand and left the arcade. Weird siblings, Konko muttered to herself. I should head back to the club room. With that, Konko also left the arcade. She'd come by to play if she had free time, but night meant there was devil work to be done. By now, night had fully fallen, and there weren't many people left on the streets. It felt a little eerie, but neither Riku nor Shui were ordinary people, so there was nothing to worry about. Elsewhere, under the dim street lights, three boys were walking together, laughter echoing between them. All three wore Kwa Academy uniforms. Hee hee, sigh, this is the good stuff, isn't it? A bald boy, Matsuda, said with a mischievous grin, waving the adult magazine in his hand at his friend. Hee hee, Matsuda, Motohama, I can't believe you guys actually got your hands on this. I've wanted one forever. Said the one in the middle, Hayao to sigh, chuckling. See, I told you. What could be more important than picking up stuff like this? The glasses-wearing boy, Motohama, added, feigning seriousness. These three were the infamous perverted trio of Kwa Academy, and at this point, Hayao had not yet become Rya's Creamery's servant. Huh? Why are there black feathers? Suddenly, black feathers drifted down from the sky, causing all three boys to stop and stare. Looking up, they froze eyes wide in disbelief, the magazine dropping from their hands. Hovering in the sky above was a woman with black angel wings and a spear of light, looking down on them coldly. Wait, am I dreaming? You've gotta be kidding me. Wow, what a rack. Of course, Sai's attention was locked onto the fallen angel's chest. Honestly, Rainer-sama should have taken care of you ages ago. The woman's tone was full of murderous intent as she glared at Sai. A mere human dares to stare at me like that? Die. With that, the fallen angel's light spear grew even larger as she prepared to throw it. This looks bad. Sai and his friends turned pale with fear, desperately wanting to run away. But in the very next moment, the fallen angel hurled her spear of light, which tore through the air. Boom. A small explosion rocked the ground, leaving a crater in the street. In the middle of it lay the three boys, their bodies mangled and blood everywhere, dying. Humphrey. With all the strange happenings in Kwa Town lately, and the exorcist's sudden boost in power, I can't risk letting an unknown sacred gear wielder live. Blame your own bad luck. With those words, the fallen angel flapped her black wings and disappeared. Not long after the fallen angel left, Riku and Shui appeared at the scene. Butterfly effect, huh? Riku looked at Hayao Sai's corpse, shaking his head. Honestly, I never thought the protagonist would die to such a minor villain. With a protagonist's fate like Sai's, he shouldn't die even with this much chaos. The only explanation was that Riku's interference, swallowing the world's sovereignty, had introduced enough chaos to break Sai's plot armor. Suddenly, Riku noticed a scrap of paper peeking out of Sai's ruined pocket, a slip with a blood-red magic crest and a faint magical aura. The Creamery family crest, Riku murmured as he picked it up, his eyes flickering. So even after getting this, he still died. Ryaz didn't show up, looks like something delayed her. Maybe whatever it was had to do with me. Riku shook his head. Kiba had noticed something strange about him and had probably gone to alert Ryaz. And Suna Saitri had already met him, and maybe even contacted her sister. So it was perfectly normal for those childhood friends to be holding a careful discussion about him. Just then, a red light flickered on Sai's body, and a violent aura surged, trying to escape. The boosted gear, huh? Riku murmured, raising his hand to cast a spell and intercept it. The boosted gear? Isn't that your? Shui asked, looking in surprise at the crimson gauntlet Riku had just captured. No, it's not the same as Riku's. There's a really strong aura inside, and it gives off a bad feeling. Shui then shook her head, frowning. This is one of this world's true sacred gears, the original boosted gear. Mine is technically a sacred gear too, but it's far purer than this one that's full of curses. And the potential is much greater, Riku explained. I see, Shui nodded slightly. This thing is useless to me now, but it might be interesting for research. Riku shrugged. With the knowledge of the God of the Bible, as long as he had the right materials, creating new sacred gears would be easy. Having a specimen was perfect? With that in mind, Riku casually tossed the boosted gear into his system storage. Just as he finished and was about to leave, a crimson magic circle suddenly appeared, centered on the slip of paper, catching his attention. Shui looked over calmly as well. From the magic circle, 5 figures slowly emerged. The most familiar to Riku were Suna Saitri and Tsubaki, whom he had already met. Then there was Kiba, whom he'd only seen once in passing. The remaining 2 girls, though Riku knew them by reputation, this was his first real encounter. Leading them was a tall girl with waist-length crimson hair, her posture full of the grace and dignity of a noble lady. Her face was so perfect it was as if she'd stepped out of a dream. But what drew the eye most was her dazzling red hair. The other girl had no less beauty or figure. Her black hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, giving her a spirited look. Riku instantly recognized them, Rya's Creamery and Akeno Himejima. Well, if it isn't little Suna and little Tsubaki. I didn't expect to see you again so soon, Riku said with a smile after glancing appreciatively at Ryaz and Akeno. Suna and Tsubaki were both covered in metaphorical sweat. When did they become so close to him? Good evening, Mr. Riku. At that moment, Ryaz politely bowed to Riku. I'm Rya's Creamery, and these are my servants, Akeno Himejima and Kiba Yodo. Pardon the sudden intrusion, Ryaz said, eyes gleaming with curiosity as she looked at Riku. Earlier, she and Suna had been discussing Riku. When Suna told her about Seraphal's warning, it had genuinely startled her. She'd ended up contacting her brother, Sirsts, who'd given almost the same advice, if in a more relaxed tone. After that, Ryaz and Sona began investigating Riku, only to learn what had transpired in the underworld, how the Nabirius family had been wiped out by Riku, yet the underworld had taken no action. Even if Nabirius was guilty, it should have been handled internally, not by an outsider, and yet no one raised a word. Clearly abnormal. So, by the time they arrived, much had happened. Sona just happened to be with her, so they came together. Showing up out of nowhere. "You're not here just to chat, are you?" Riku asked Ryaz and Sona calmly. "Of course not. If I may be blunt, what happened to those 3 students from Kua Academy?" Sona pushed up her glasses, her face serious. "A student's death was a big deal. Are you suspecting me?" Riku's eyes narrowed, his tone frosty. "Of course not," Sona shook her head. "With your status, Mr. Riku, there's no way you'd kill a few ordinary students for no reason. I don't know exactly who did it, but it was the work of a fallen angel. That much is certain." Riku shrugged and, with a gesture, pulled a black feather from the ground. Fallen angels. Both Ryaz and Sona frowned at that. Having fallen angels show up in their territory was nothing but trouble. "If there's nothing else, I'll be going." Riku shook his head, taking Shui's hand and preparing to leave. "Oh, right, Sona, make the arrangements. I'm going to be the Occult Research Club's faculty advisor." With a wave of his hand, Riku tossed this out as an afterthought. Before Sona or Ryaz could respond, Riku and Shui vanished on the spot. "What an outrageous guy," Sona said, rubbing her forehead in frustration. "So he wants to be our Occult Research Club advisor. I can't figure out what he's thinking," Ryaz added with a wry smile. What a strange man. But for some reason, I quite like him," Akano said with a smile. Sona and Ryaz both blinked at that. Indeed, even though they knew next to nothing about Riku, and despite his unknown background and goals, they just instinctively felt he meant no harm. "Ryaz, are you sure about letting him become your advisor?" Sona asked. Let's just go with it. Since both my brother and your sister warned us, if we turn down even this simple request, it might make him unhappy." Ryaz nodded, her eyes flickering. "Besides, keeping him close means we can keep a better eye on his intentions, right?" "Understood," Sona nodded, then bade farewell. "Well then, good night." With that, a blue magic circle appeared at Sona and Tsubaki's feet, and they left. After they were gone, Ryaz looked at Sai's corpse, shook her head, and instructed Yodo to restore the area with magic and dispose of the bodies. Lastly, she altered the memories of their families. And so, the events of this night came to a quiet end, as if nothing had ever happened. Chapter 70. After returning to the house he'd bought in Kua Town, Riku played chess with Shui. This time, Riku lost, evening out their score once more. So they started playing a different game, and once they got going, it was hard to stop. Everything happened without words needing to be said. The next day, after Riku and Shui took a bath together, they headed for Kua Academy. With Sona handling things, Riku naturally became the new PE teacher, enjoying a relaxed life. As for Shui, she became a first-year student. A new transfer student, especially such a cute girl, instantly stirred up excitement in Class 1A, among both boys and girls. The girls, in particular, couldn't get enough of Shui's adorable looks and figure, surrounding her with endless questions. The boys, on the other hand, were too embarrassed to push their way through the crowd. In the class, Konko kept staring at Shui. She hadn't expected Shui to transfer here, and the president had even asked her to look after her. That means Riku-senpai probably transferred here too. No wonder he said yesterday that they'd meet again soon, Konko murmured to herself. She couldn't explain her feelings about Riku, so she'd challenged him yesterday, only to be utterly defeated. That just made her even more interested. The last period before lunch was PE. When Konko arrived at the field, she froze. Riku was smiling at her. The other girls couldn't stop squealing. After all, first-year high school was the age of budding romance, and Riku's aura and good looks had them all captivated. Not to mention, he'd even boosted his charm with loot from a treasure chest. If Riku just crooked his finger, he could probably star in a teacher-student romance scenario right out of an eroge. But for now, Riku had no interest in ordinary girls. "Hello everyone, I'm the new PE teacher. Just call me Riku," Riku said with a faint smile. "Today's class is free time, do whatever you like." Hearing this, the boys and girls alike were delighted. "Konko, Shui, come over here," Riku called out before any of the girls could mob him, beckoning Konko to join Shui over. "Riku-senpai, why are you here?" Under the shade of a tree, Konko asked, puzzled. "You should call me Riku-sensei now, Konko-chan," Riku said seriously. "You demand I call you sensei but then tack on Konko-chan at the end. Don't you think that's a bit weird?" Konko shook her head. "Don't worry about the details. Anyway, I'll be your teacher from now on, Riku shrugged. How's school so far, Shui? Riku asked, patting her head. It's a little boring, but not bad, Shui replied honestly. Is that so? Well, enjoy it while you can, Riku smiled. Tonight, I want to challenge you again, Konko said stubbornly, staring at Riku. If I have time, I'll play with you. But before that, as your PE teacher, I should properly teach you some martial arts, Riku said nonchalantly. Martial arts? Konko blinked, confused. Riku just smiled. Soon, the field became the site of a strange scene. What should have been a regular PE class turned into a sparring match between Riku and Konko, full of direct, hands-on corrections. Shui watched from nearby. Their classmates looked on in shock. They had never guessed that Konko, usually considered Kwa Academy's mascot, was so strong. As for Riku, he was in a league of his own. Looks like there's no problem, Ryaz and Suna both murmured to themselves as they watched from the window. Being a PE teacher was an easy job. After giving Konko some pointers, Riku lay around in the Occult Research Club's room, studying sacred gears. When Konko found out that Riku was now the club's advisor, she was visibly confused. But after Ryaz, Kano, and Kiba each came by to explain, Konko finally understood she was the only one who hadn't known. As for Riku and Shui in the clubroom, Ryaz couldn't help but feel something was off. Despite only knowing each other for a short time, their interactions weren't awkward at all. In fact, they seemed completely natural together. Just like that, a week passed. Riku would occasionally teach PE, tease the girls from various classes, then wander around town. In the evenings or on weekends, he'd play games and go out hunting for good food with Shui and Konko, so the three grew quite close. Where should I have fun today? Or maybe I should go mess with a god for a change? Riku mused to himself as he strolled through town during school hours. Suddenly, Riku's sharp senses picked out a girl on the street. She was a young girl looking like a nun, with long, shiny, golden hair and clear emerald eyes. Her adorable face would make any connoisseur give her full marks. But more importantly, Riku recognized her. She looked anxious and lost, glancing around at the crowd with clear unease. Which made sense. Alone in a foreign land, unable to speak the language, she was hopelessly lost, and passers-by couldn't help her. You look troubled. Is there anything I can help you with? Riku asked after a moment's thought. Thank goodness, the Lord hasn't abandoned me. Upon hearing Riku's fluent English, Asia Argento turned to him, eyes shining as she made a gesture of prayer. Because I don't speak the language, I got lost. If it's possible, could you take me to the church? Asia asked shyly. The church? Sure, follow me, Riku replied, his eyes glinting slightly. He set off toward the church, and Asia quickly caught up, constantly murmuring thanks. Riku shook his head. Asia was just too pure. A total stranger, and she believed whatever he said. If she met a bad person, she'd probably help them count their money after being sold off. This kind of personality reminded Riku of Gabriel. They were the same type. What's a foreign girl like you doing all alone in Japan? Riku asked the blonde girl beside him, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I. Hearing this, Asia was startled, then her expression became downcast, unable to get the words out. Looks like you've got something you can't talk about, huh? If that's the case, I won't pry, Riku shook his head slightly. When he'd visited the church and heaven, Asia had already been exiled, so Riku had managed to hurry straight to Kwa Town. As for Asia's general whereabouts, with his control of the system, Riku was able to keep an eye on her and even bestow a measure of holy protection. So he wasn't worried about her safety. He just hadn't expected to run into her so coincidentally. This was perhaps an inevitability born from coincidence. I'm sorry. Even though you helped me, Riku-san, I can't tell you the truth, Asia shook her head. Lord, please forgive my rudeness. With that, Asia clasped her hands in prayer. Riku felt a bit awkward about that. He was a lord now, too, in a sense, so having someone pray to him right to his face was a little strange. Riku-san, is there something odd about me? Asia asked curiously when she saw Riku staring at her. No, nothing like that. I was just impressed by your deep faith, Riku joked with a laugh. Because the Lord is omnipotent, Asia replied with a pure smile. Omnipotent, huh? Riku shook his head faintly. In truth, there was no such thing as an all-powerful god. Maybe once he'd seized the world's authority, he'd barely count as one. Wait, Riku-san. At that moment, Asia suddenly looked embarrassed. Could you please wait a moment? With Riku watching, Asia ran over to the roadside, where there was an injured stray cat. Usually, stray cats and dogs are quite aggressive, especially if they're hurt. Most would hiss and bare their teeth at anyone who approached. But with Asia, that simply didn't apply. She easily approached the stray, then gently placed her hands on it. Light green rings of energy shone from the rings on both of Asia's index fingers, radiating a soothing warmth. The wound on the cat's leg quickly healed, and after affectionately licking Asia's hand, the cat scampered off. That's twilight healing, huh? Asia, you've got quite a nice sacred gear, Riku commented, watching Asia smile. Huh? Riku-san, you know about it? Asia looked up in surprise. I'm not an ordinary person, you know. Don't be fooled by appearances, Riku said casually. I see. Asia's gaze grew uneasy. If he knew about her sacred gear and was an underworld person, it was only natural he'd know her identity too. That probably meant he'd dislike her. Asia thought with some sadness. She'd been driven out of the church as a witch for saving a devil. She was really at a loss. Don't overthink it. I could never hate someone as kind and adorable as you. Honestly, anyone who could is just pathetic, Riku said, resting a hand lightly on her head. The church people. Sure, their main goal was to maintain the system, but there was also a strong element of fear that drove out anyone who was different. Even as their god now, Riku had no intention of justifying that. In fact, he would rather wanted to educate them himself. Asia was caught off guard by the unexpected words, her delicate face quickly turning red. It was the first time anyone had ever called her cute. Back in the church, everyone had treated her with reverence due to her saint status. But after being expelled as a witch, they all turned on her, treating her like a monster. Riku-san, you're really a good person, Asia said, cheeks flushed with a smile. Yeah, just call me Riku from now on. San makes me sound old, Riku said, raising a finger. Okay. That bit of closeness made Asia happily nod. Riku was pleased as well. As they chatted, the two arrived at a rather run-down church. On the surface, this church appeared abandoned and uninhabited. But now, it was being used as a hideout by fallen angels and stray priests. Oh my, our new comrade, and you're already bringing outsiders here? That's not okay. Our affairs must be kept secret, you know, a malicious voice suddenly rang out just as Riku was about to bid Asia farewell at the church door. A white-haired priest appeared, surrounded by a group of black-robed stray priests, encircling Riku and Asia. Father Freed, I'm sorry. I got lost, and Riku brought me here, Asia said uneasily, sensing Freed's hostility. To be honest, joining the fallen angels had been a last resort for her, and she had no idea what would happen next. She hadn't meant to bring Riku into this, but she'd gotten too comfortable talking to him and forgotten herself. Thinking of this, Asia was overwhelmed with guilt and regret. Asia, that's not acceptable. These are tense times, so every unpredictable element must be eliminated, Freed said with a sinister grin, eyes filled with malice as he stared at Riku. So, he'll have to be killed by yours truly. Asia's face went pale, frozen on the spot. What a bunch of pathetic clowns, Riku said, calmly observing the scene with a shake of his head. The perverted priest from the original story, he'd originally planned to let him be, to help Asia see the true face of the fallen angels, but if they were coming after him directly, there was no need to hold back. With that thought, he activated a spell, and in an instant, the whole church lit up with intense holy light. Before Freed and the stray priests could even react, they were vaporized, no corpses left behind. Even a few fallen angels hiding in the shadows were instantly wiped out by Riku, nothing remained of them. For small fry like these, there was no need for talk. Extermination was best.